think the shop's on.
Haunted. Adam, don't be ridiculous. This is exactly the exaggeration I warned you about. It's a store. Shelves, walls, fluorescent lights. If you insist on treating delusions like folklore, then we're wasting these sessions. Do you understand, Adam?
Do you ever think of me as a person, or just a case study? Why should I still trust you, Doctor?
You don't need to trust me to get better, Adam. You just need to be obedient.
Not again.
I met Plato in a holding cell after the kind of night that ends with your face down on pavement, explaining to a cop why you can't remember your own address. Public intoxication. My third arrest that month. Not that anyone was counting, except the landlord who'd already started the eviction paperwork. I was the special kind of broke where you start Googling things like cell plasma near me and actually click the links, reading about needle gauges and waiting periods like you're researching a doctoral thesis instead of admitting you're completely fucked. Plato was older than me by maybe a decade, with greying dreads pulled back in a ponytail and the kind of steady, weathered calm that only comes from having survived worse nights than this one. We got to talking the way desperate men do in holding cells, swapping war stories about landlords and bills and job interviews that ghost you 3 days before rent's due. The usual soundtrack of American poverty. He listened more than he talked, nodding in the right places, and I must have looked as hollow as I felt because eventually he leaned in close and dropped his voice to maybe a whisper. Saw a posting downtown yesterday. Construction crew. Deep country work. Way up in the hills past Thurberg. They're paying $200 a day. Cash. Plus lodging. No drug tests. No background checks. You just need your own boots and gloves and a birth certificate to prove you're over 18. $200 per day. I would have dug ditches in hell for that kind of money. He fished a torn piece of receipt paper from his pocket and slid it across the bench. A phone number in blurred ink. They're hiring fast. Like, suspiciously fast. But the money's real. I called from the payphone outside the precinct the second they released me. A man answered on the second ring, his voice like stones grinding together in a riverbed. He didn't ask my name, didn't ask for references or experience. Just 2 questions.
Got your own tools?
And...
You over 18?
I said yes to both.
Motel 6 on Route 9. Rooms paid for tonight. Be there by dark. Van leaves tomorrow at 6 a.m. sharp.
The line went dead. I spent my last $40 on gas to get there. Rent money? Grocery money? Fuck yeah. When Plato got released an hour after me, I asked if he was going too. He looked at that scrap of paper in my hand for a long, calculating moment. Then at me, then back at the number. Something unreadable passed across his face. Yeah, he said, exhaling slowly. Yeah, man. Someone's gotta keep you from spending that per diem on a neck tattoo or some other stupid shit. The office was a motel parking lot lit by flickering sodium lights and the neon glow of a vacancy sign that buzzed like a trapped wasp. Our foreman, Buzz, showed up 20 minutes late, looking nothing like any foreman I'd ever seen. Late 20s, arms sleeved in faded prison tattoos, wearing basketball shorts and flip-flops like he was headed to a backyard barbecue instead of a job site. He had a clipboard but didn't look at it, didn't ask for our names or IDs or any kind of paperwork. Just handed each of us a motel room key and a sealed white envelope. inside mine, 10 crisp $20 bills. $200. Real money, heavy in my hand. The doubt I'd been carrying since the phone call melted away like frost in morning sun. This was legitimate. Had to be. "Van leaves at 6 a.m, Buzz said, already walking away. I almost listened, but my burner, some cracked screen Android I lifted from a Walmart return bin, was the only thing I owned that still felt like mine. I've been using it to type notes to myself ever since the eviction notices started sliding under the door like love letters from hell. Never posted them anywhere, just thumb-typed in the Notes app when the panic got too loud, then locked the screen and pretended the words were safe inside. A private confession booth that ran on cheap electricity and desperation. So I kept it, tucked it in the inner pocket of my jacket with the screen against my ribs, airplane mode and silent, pretending I was obeying orders. Plato noticed. Of course he did. "Solar panel folds up smaller than a road map," he murmured, while we loaded the van, voice pitched low enough the others couldn't hear. "Monocrystalline, 20 watt. I hang it over a pine bowl, run a USB-C down to whatever needs juice. Keeps a phone alive forever, if you're careful with the brightness." I asked why he bothered. "Because some stories need to outlive the teller," he said, and wouldn't explain. That should have been red flag number 1. There were 8 of us crammed into a beat-up 15-passenger van the next morning. All men, all looking like they'd crawled out of the same desperate hole I had. Nobody talked much during the drive. We rolled north for over an hour, watching pavement turn to gravel, turn to a rutted dirt road that wound up into thick green hills that seemed to close in around us like a fist. The air coming through the cracked windows got noticeably colder, smelling of wet earth and pine, and something else underneath. Something old, and mineral, and vaguely wrong in a way I couldn't name. We finally stopped at what looked like an abandoned trailhead. No fence posts waiting, no lumber, no pallets of supplies or concrete mix or any of the shit you'd expect at a construction site. Just trees and a trail disappearing into shadow. "Everybody out," Buzz called. "Grab your tools, site's about 2 miles in." One of the crew, an older guy with a face like sun-dried leather and hands that had seen 40 years of hard labor, finally spoke up. "Hell of a hack for fence work." Buzz didn't answer, just started walking. We followed because, what else were we gonna do? The per diem was already in my pocket, already spending my head on rent and food and maybe a new pair of boots that didn't give me blisters. My Goodwill specials were already rubbing my heels raw. Plato stayed close to me during the hike, eyes constantly scanning the tree line, jaw tight. His whole body had gone tense and alert in a way I'd never seen before. "Man, this is a long way for a fence," he muttered, more to himself than me. When the old guy said it louder, "They told me we was putting up a barn," and somebody else laughed, that nervous, disbelieving laugh that means you know something's wrong, but you're not ready to admit it yet. My stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. Buzz kept walking, didn't acknowledge the question, didn't slow down. Then, we broke through the tree line into a clearing, and every thought in my head stopped dead. The hole. It wasn't a hole, not really. It was a mouth carved into the mountain. A perfect dark rectangle, maybe 10 feet by 12, punched straight down into the earth with the edges too clean and too precise to be natural. To be natural. No drill marks, no blast patterns, just smooth walls descending into blackness, like someone had taken a cookie cutter the size of a studio apartment and stamped it into the ground. A massive mound of fresh black dirt sat beside it. And I mean black, not brown, not clay red, but the color of deep space, of places light never reaches. A thick steel cable ran from a pulley system jerry-rigged between 2 pine trees, disappearing down into the dark. About 6 feet below the surface, a boulder the size of a compact car was wedged on a narrow ledge. Below that, a single aluminium extension ladder, the kind you buy at Home Depot for cleaning gutters, extended down into nothing. The air around it smelled wrong. Ozone and wet stone, sure, but underneath, there was something else. Something stale and ancient that made the back of my throat itch and my teeth ache like I was chewing aluminium foil. Nobody said shit for like 10 seconds. Plato grabbed my arm so hard I figured I'd have his fingerprints branded into my skin, but I didn't flinch. I wouldn't give the hole the satisfaction. "Look at the edges," he whispered, voice barely audible. "T, look at those edges. That's not dug. That's cut. That's machined." He was right. The walls were sheer, smooth, straight up and down like someone used a giant cookie cutter. Not like anything natural. "And that ladder," his voice cracked. "That's not for building something. That's for going down. We're not builders here, man. We're diggers. Or we're bait." Buzz started barking orders about shifts and buckets and rotation schedules. Something about hauling dirt up from below. One man down filling buckets, while two worked the pulley system. I barely heard him. I was staring at the hole, and I swear on everything I've ever believed in, the hole was staring back. Not metaphorically. I could feel the tension on me, like pressure, behind my eyes. They put us to work immediately. The system was brutally simple. Climb down that rickety ladder, fill industrial buckets with whatever you find, clip them to the cable, signal the surface crew to haul them up. Rotate every hour or so nobody gets tired. Nobody explained what we were digging for. Nobody mentioned permits or geological surveys or any of the regulatory paperwork that's supposed to exist before we start tearing into a mountain. The old guy from the van, Ray I think, worked without complaining. Even cracked jokes about the weight of the dirt. "This is as heavy as my ex-wife's expectations," he said, and got a few exhausted laughs. Plato didn't laugh. He kept staring at the tree line, at the edges of the clearing. That's when I noticed the old collapsed shack back in the woods, half consumed by moss and rot, and on a nearby rock face, barely visible under decades of weathering, I saw symbols. Flaking white paint in sharp angles and spirals that seem to shift when you look at them directly, making my eyes water and my head pound. That night, they set up camp in the clearing. Generator lights, a circle of tents around a fire pit, the whole 9 yards of backcountry operation. It hadn't rained in weeks, according to Buzz. The ground was cracked, dusty, dry as bone. Plato and I were assigned to share a tent. He didn't talk much after we zipped ourselves in, just sat with his arms wrapped around his knees, staring at the nylon wall like he could see through it to something beyond. Finally, a voice barely above a whisper. "We bounce the moment we got Buzz fair, man. Not when Buzz says we're done. The second we can split, we ghost. Middle of the night if we gotta." I'd known Plato for less than 48 hours, but I'd never heard him sound like that. Scared. Actually scared. "Yeah," I said. "I hear you." They found Ray the next morning. His tent was flooded. About a foot of murky, ice-cold water sloshing around inside. He was face down in it. Drowned. The ground outside his tent was cracked and dry. Not a puddle within 50 feet. Not a trace of moisture anywhere except inside that one tent. Buzz called it a freak accident. "Canteen must have leaked during the night. Got disorientated. Maybe hit his head. These things happen on remote sites." One of the older crew members, a guy with a grey beard who looked like he'd worked 1,000 sketchy jobs, just like this one, just shook his head. Not surprised, not shocked, resigned. "Always something," he muttered, to nobody in particular. "Bad air, rockfall, flooding in a drought. Mountain doesn't like being dug into." the way he said it. Like this was normal. Like he'd seen it before. I wanted to leave right then, pack up, walk back down that trail, hitchhike to literally anywhere else. But I did the math. 3 days at $200 a pop was $600. 600 meant I could pay the back rent, hit the grocery store instead of the dollar menu, maybe even get that cracked tooth fixed before it kills me. 600 meant maybe I didn't have to suck dick for gas money this month. The per diem felt heavy in my pocket, heavier than paper and ink should feel. That afternoon, while the crew was loading Ray's body into a tarp, Plato walked over to the rock face with the symbols. He studied them for a long time, reaching out like he might touch them, then jerking his hand back like he'd gotten shocked. "You see it too?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. "It's not graffiti," he said quietly, not looking at me. "Graffiti says I was here. This says you shouldn't be." The symbols seemed to move when I looked at them too long. Spirals turning inward. Angles that didn't quite obey geometry. I looked away. My head was pounding. That night, Plato didn't sleep. He sat at the tent entrance with the flap partially unzipped, staring at the hole. It was maybe 30 yards away, just a rectangle of deeper darkness in the dark clearing. But I could hear it breathing. I swear to God. A low, wet, rhythmic sound, like lungs the size of houses, slowly inflating and deflating. "Plato," I whispered. "You hear that?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then, voice hollow and distant. "We're not digging, D." "What?" "We're not digging. We're excavating. There's a difference." "What the hell does that mean?" He finally turned to look at me. His eyes are bloodshot, wide, reflecting the moonlight like an animal's. "You dig to build something. You excavate to uncover something that's already there." He pointed at the hole. "That's not new. That's old, ancient. And we're opening it." I didn't sleep that night. Just laid there, listening to the breathing sound that might have been wind through the trees, or might have been something else entirely. The per diem envelope was under my sleeping bag. $200. Blood money. But it was the only money I had. Plato didn't sleep. I woke up sometime in the blind hours and saw him cross-legged by the dead fire, phone angled toward a paperback he'd pulled from his pack. The pages were tissue thin, gilt edges green in the screen glow. He wasn't reading, he was copying, thumb typing line after line into a note he titled, "For tea." I whispered, "Homework?" He didn't look up. "Insurance." When he finished, he Bluetooth beamed the file to my burner, then shut his screen. William Blake, 1789, a chimney sweeper's song. I read it twice. The sweepers are sold by their fathers, locked in black coffins, promise God will father them if they're good boys. In the end, the priests and kings who make up a heaven of our misery walk away whistling. I asked Plato why he gave it to me. "Just always keep it in mind, T. Just keep it in mind." When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, "Weep, weep, weep, weep." The day after Ray drowned in a tent surrounded by dust, dry earth, the camp went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of silence that sits on your chest like a weight. We worked because Buzz told us to work, hauling buckets of black dirt up from the hole in mechanical rotations that felt less like labor and more like ritual. Nobody joked anymore. Nobody even looked at each other. But I couldn't stop looking at the shack. It sat maybe 50 yards back in the tree line, half collapsed and covered in decades of moss and rot. The graffiti symbols I noticed the first day seemed to pulse in my peripheral vision. They were calling to me. Plato caught me staring at it during the afternoon shift. "Stop that, man," he said quietly, not looking up from the rope he was coiling. "Your brain's just latching onto anything that isn't the hole. It's survival instinct." "Then why are you staring at it too?" He didn't answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. The symbols from the rock face burned behind my eyelids every time I closed my eyes. Those sharp angles and inward-turning spirals that seemed to move when you looked at them too long. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, just exhaustion, just my mind trying to process Ray's impossible drowning in a place where water shouldn't exist. But my legs carried me out of the tent anyway. I slipped past the dying campfire and into the woods, phone light cutting a weak beam through the dark. The door hung crooked on one hinge. Inside was worse. The graffiti wasn't just on the walls anymore. It was carved into the floorboards, gouged into the support beams, scratched into the window frames with what looked like fingernails or broken tools. Layers upon layers of it. Old paint over older carvings. Some symbols so weathered they were barely visible. And among the spirals and angles were words in frantic, overlapping handwriting. The well is not for water. It dreams in the deep earth. The price is paid in silence. Do not bring up the black stones. My breath fogged despite the warm night air. Wrong. The temperature inside was wrong. Tucked into a rotted windowsill, wrapped in cracked oilcloth, I found a journal. The pages were brittle, yellowed, covered in tight paranoid script. I recognized the handwriting from some of the wall carvings. Someone had lived here, watched the dig, documented it. The entries jumped around, dated across several months in what looked like the 1950s. Company men was mentioned repeatedly. Men in suits who came and went in the night. Men who paid in cash and asked no questions and required absolute silence. The writer, never gave a name, talked about the crew getting stone sick, coughing up black dust, hearing whispers from the rocks they pulled up, seeing things in the hole that weren't there when you looked directly at them. The last entry, alone on a page, underlined 3 times. They are not digging, they are waking it. We're leaving, now. I spun around. Plato stood in the doorway, his phone light washing out the hollows on his face. He'd followed me. He was reading over my shoulder, and I watched all the color drain from his skin. "We bounce right now, man. Grab our shit and ghost. First light before these corporate vampires even wake up." No argument in his voice, no debate, just cold, certain fear. I looked at the journal in my hands, at the words carved into the walls, at the per diem cash in my pocket that I'd already spent in my head on food and rent and maybe a security deposit on a place that wasn't a weekly motel. We couldn't leave. Not yet. First light, I agreed. We both knew we were lying. At dawn, we packed our bags. Quietly, deliberately. Plato moved with the kind of careful precision you use when you're trying not to wake something dangerous. We just finished stuffing our tents into our packs when Buzz materialized from his trailer like he'd been watching us the whole time. "Where you 2 pussies think you're going?" Plato stepped forward, hands open, voice steady. "We're done. The job wasn't what you said it would be. People are dying. We want our pay for days worked, and we're walking." Buzz got on his face, all cheap cologne and prison yard menace. He was bigger than Plato, younger, meaner. You walk with nothing. You talk to anyone about this site, you disappear. Period. You read me? That's when I heard footsteps on the trail. Crisp, precise. The sound of dress shoes on dirt. The man who emerged from the tree line looked like he'd taken a catastrophically wrong turn on his way to a corporate board meeting. Tailored grey suit, no wrinkles despite the hike. Polished Oxfords that somehow weren't dirty. He carried a leather briefcase and picked his way down the trail with a dainty care that was almost offensive given the circumstances. Dude looked like every middle manager I'd ever stolen from. Boring as shit. The kind of face you forget while you're still looking at it. "Is there a problem, Buzz?" His voice was soft, polite, utterly chilling. Buzz backed off immediately, muttering something about personnel issues and retention. The suit barely flicked his finger at Buzz, like swatting a fly. Then he looked at us. Not like we were people, like we were fucking inventory. Checking teeth, counting ribs, seeing which one might fetch a good price. "I understand your concern," he said. "I understand your concern. Raymond's incident was unfortunate. A valuable lesson in the importance of workplace safety protocols and personnel accountability measures." He set the briefcase on a nearby stump and opened it with precise manicured fingers. It wasn't full of papers. Stacks of cash, rubber-banded and pristine, a satellite phone, and a single black credit card that caught the morning light like obsidian. "My name is Joseph. I represent the interests funding this operation." He spoke like he was reading from a script, every word chosen with care. "The work you're performing is important. Beyond your understanding, frankly. We are retrieving misplaced items, archaeological artifacts of significant value. Anything unusual you discover, anything that feels wrong or out of place, you bring directly to me. For that, you are compensated extraordinarily well." He peeled off a stack of hundreds, twice, that we'd earned in 2 days, and held it out. "A bonus for your continued discretion and labor. Walk away now, and you not forfeit only this, but the substantial completion bonus waiting at project's end. 6 figures, gentlemen, split among the crew who remain. Stay, and you are part of something historic." He wasn't threatening us. He was bargaining. And he was using the one weapon we had no defense against. Hope. Hope that this nightmare job might actually be our ticket out of poverty. That the horror might be worth it. Plato stared at the money like it was a snake. I could see the war on his face. Reason versus need. Fear versus desperation. I felt the journal in my pack burning against my spine. "Do not bring up the black stones." "Historic," Plato repeated slowly, tasting the word. "What exactly are we digging up?" Joseph's expression didn't change. "Items misplaced long ago. Your concern is extraction, not interpretation. That's my domain." He held out the money, waiting. Plato took it. His hand shook. We stayed. The money was a drug, the only way I can describe it. Joseph hiked up each morning like he was commuting to an office, watched the dig from the edge of the clearing like a gargoyle and business casual, and left at dusk with whatever we'd found wrapped carefully in his briefcase. He had a portable card reader hooked to the satellite phone. Every time someone bought him something significant, he'd swipe that black card and announce, "Bonus issued," in a flat, emotionless voice. The things we were pulling up weren't natural. Twisted pieces of something as heavy as metal, too smooth to be hand-tooled, with the edges that seemed to curve in directions that hurt to look at. Lumps of clay that stayed warm for hours after leaving the ground, radiating heat like they had their own internal furnace. Fragments of something that might have been glass or might have been stone, translucent and shot through with colours that didn't have names. And the black stones, oblong, roughly the size of your fist, veined with iridescent blue that seemed to pulse under your fingers. The men who found them came up from a hole changed, quieter. Their eyes went distant and glassy, like they'd seen something down there they couldn't process. They handed the stones to Joseph with shaking hands. When Joseph received his first black stone, his professional mask slipped, just for a second. A flash of something that might have been hunger or might have been terror. He took it with gloved hands, wrapped it in white cloth with ritualistic care, and placed it in a separate compartment in his briefcase. Then he swiped that card 3 times. Substantial bonus issued. I was top man that day, strapped to a tree with a climbing harness, managing the pulley that hauled buckets up and lowered them back down. It was considered the safe job, the easy job. You didn't have to go into the hole, but you had to watch what came out of it. Plato volunteered for the next descent. He gave me a look before he climbed down the ladder. A look that said, I need to see for myself what's down there. I watched his headlamp disappear into the black. He was down there for 45 minutes. When he came up, he was covered in fine black dust that clung to his skin like pollen. He moved slowly, mechanically, like his body was on autopilot while his mind processed something enormous. His eyes were wide and unfocused. He climbed off the ladder without a word and stood there, just breathing in ragged gasps, one hand clenched in a fist. Plato, I unclipped from my harness and moved towards him. Man, what did you see? Goes down forever, man, he whispered. But the man sounded forced, like he was trying to remember how to be human. The ladder stops at 40 feet, but the hole keeps going. I could feel it below me, miles and miles, and his breathing, T. It's fucking breathing. Joseph appeared beside us. I hadn't heard him approach. Did you retrieve anything? Plato slowly opened his other fist. In his palm sat a tiny metal cube, maybe an inch on each side, perfectly smooth, no seams, no markings, no indication of how it was made or what it was made for. It was cold, so cold that condensation was already forming on its surface despite the warm morning air. Joseph's eyes locked onto it with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He reached out with his gloved hand. Plato looked at the cube, looked at me, looked at Joseph's hungry expression. He closed his fist and pulled his hand back. It's mine, he said, and for just a second his voice had that old warmth, that hippie steel. Finders keepers, man. Joseph's face went blank. I'm afraid that's not how it works. All materials belong to... I found it. Plato's voice hardened. You want it? You buy it. Separate from the bonus. Double what you paid for the last stone. For a long moment, the clearing went silent, except for the generator's hum and the distant sound of the hull breathing. Then, Joseph smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Very enterprising. Tomorrow then. Bring it to me tomorrow and we'll discuss terms. He walked away, dress shoes crunching on gravel, briefcase swinging gently at his side. Plato watched him go. His fist stayed closed around the cube. We're not giving it to him, he whispered. Not this one. Why? What is it? He finally looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot, ringed with that black dust, and absolutely terrified. I don't know, but down there, in the dark, I could hear it talking to me. That night, Plato didn't sleep. He sat with a cube in his palm, staring at it like it was the most important thing in the world. Sometimes he'd whisper to it. I lay in my sleeping bag and listened to the hull breathe and thought about the journal's warning. They are not digging, they are waking it. A little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep, in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother, say? So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. Plato spent the week with that cube in his palm, and by morning he looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His eyes were bloodshot and ringed with black dust that wouldn't wash off, no matter how many times he scrubbed at them. He kept whispering to it. Or maybe he was whispering to him. Hard to tell.
"We gotta read that whole journal, man," he said, voice flatter than it should have been. "Every damn page. Can't just skim the greatest hits."
I'd shoved it to the bottom of my pack after we decided to stay, trying not to think about the warnings carved into that shack. But Plato was right. If we were going to understand what the fuck we were digging up, we needed to know what happened the last time someone tried. We waited until the morning shift started, then slipped away into the woods. The shack felt different in daylight. Less haunted, more sad. Just rotted wood and desperate graffiti. We sat on the filthy floor and spread the journal between us. The pages were stuck together in places, not with age or water damage. It was something clear and oily that caught the light like glycerin, a preservative that had kept the paper intact for decades. When I peeled 2 pages apart, the slime stretched between them in sticky threads before snapping. It smelled faintly of ozone, of the hole. The early entries were mundane. A local man documenting the company's arrival in 1953. Men in suits who paid in cash and asked no questions. A crew of desperate workers who showed up one day and started digging with no explanation. Equipment that appeared overnight. The same lie about building something, never about excavating. Then the sickness started. June 14, 3 men coughing up black dust. Company doctor says it's just coal residue, but we're not mining coal. The dust tastes wrong. Metallic. June 19, Michael's hearing whispers from the rocks. Says they're speaking a language he almost understands. Company doc gave him pills. He stopped complaining, but his eyes went flat. June 27, they're not looking for minerals. Overhead, the suit's talking. They want God stones. Don't know what that means, but the way they said it made my skin crawl. Plato's finger stopped on that line.
"The God stones. What the fuck is that?"
I didn't answer because I was reading ahead, my mouth going dry. July 2. Found the first black stones today. The suits lost their minds, paid triple bonuses. But the stone does something to you. It answers. Not with the words, with feelings, with knowing, like it's trying to teach you something you shouldn't learn. July 8. It answers the noise. The hole is full of noise now. Humming, breathing, whispering. The more we bring up. The handwriting got shakier after that, more frantic. Pages covered in those spiraling symbols mixed with words that didn't quite make sense. The final legible entry, dated July 15, 1953. They're sending everyone down at once, all hands, looking for the Godstones. But the men who come up aren't the same. They move wrong, talk wrong. Yesterday I saw Parker standing on the edge, just staring down into him for 6 hours straight without blinking. When I asked if he was okay, he smiled and said, "The signal is very clear from here. I'm leaving tonight. If you're reading this, don't bring up the stones. Don't go down. Don't..." The rest was slime, preserving blank pages, or pages that had been torn out.
"It answers the noise,"
Plato repeated softly. He was turning the cube over in his hands, watching light slide across its impossible surface.
"We're teaching it we're here."
"Put that thing away, man. Seriously." He looked at me with those bloodshot eyes and smiled. Not his smile. Something else wearing his face.
"Don't you want to know what it says?"
No, I really fucking don't. That's when we heard footsteps on the brittle floorboards behind us. Jim stood in the doorway, backlit by morning sun, looking older than he had any right to. Not angry, just tired, resigned in a way that was somehow worse than fury.
"You found it too,"
he said quietly.
"The journal. I read it years ago, first time I worked this site. First time? My voice cracked. You've been here before? 3 times. Different crews, same hole, same company, same lies. He leaned against the door frame like standing was taking too much effort. They keep coming back. Every decade or so. Different name, different paperwork, same fucking dig. And people keep dying or disappearing or changing in ways that make dying look like mercy. Why did you come back? Plato asked. Jim's laugh was bitter. Same reason you stayed after Ray. Same algorithm, different platform. They cracked the code. Figured out the exact price point where desperation overrides survival instinct. You're not workers. You're users. And the product? Your fucking compliance. Plato stood up, still holding the cube. The morning light hit it at an angle, and for just a second, it seemed to glow from within, that iridescent blue pulsing like a heartbeat. The forest went silent. Not gradually, instantly. Every bird, every insect, every rustle of wind through leaves, the air went thick and heavy, pressing against my eardrums like I descended too fast in an airplane. My breath fogged, despite the warm morning. Put it away, Jim whispered, backing towards the door. Put it the fuck away right now. But Plato was staring past him, into the tree line, and that wrong smile was spreading across his face. Do you see them? He asked, voice full of wonder and horror in equal measure. I looked. At first I thought they were trees. I thought they were shadows. And then my eyes adjusted and I realized they were men. Or had been. Dozens of them standing at the edge of the clearing in perfect silence, watching us with empty eye sockets. Her skin was grey, covered in fine black dust like coal miners who'd never washed. Some wore clothes from decades ago, overalls and work shirts rotted to threads. Others were older, dressed in styles I didn't recognize. They didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, watching the cube with that terrible, hungry attention. Sut men, Jim breathed. Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus, fuck, they're manifesting in daylight. Every part of me wanted to bolt, legs screaming, brain trying to check out, bladder about to make me piss myself like a little kid. This wasn't a horror movie or some fucked up website. This was wrong on a level that bypassed thought and went straight to the primitive part of your brain that knows when you're prey. Plato stepped forward, toward them. Plato, don't. They're drawn to it, man, he said, but the man sounded like he was trying to remember how people talked. Like moths to a really fucked up flame. One of the figures took a step forward. Its foot made no sound on the forest floor. Plato let out a laugh, a short, sharp sound like a lock clicking open. Nothing human about it. Jim bolted, just turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush with the desperate speed of a man who'd seen this before and knew how it ended. I wanted to follow. Every instinct screamed at me to follow. But Plato was still walking toward them, cube extended like an offering. And I couldn't leave him alone with those things. Plato, please, we need to go. He stopped, swaying slightly, and slowly turned back to me. The smile faded. For just a second, I saw my friend again, confused, scared, realizing he'd walked too close to something terrible. Yeah, he said shakily. Yeah, okay, let's go. The figures didn't follow us back to camp. They just stood there, watching, until we lost sight of them through the trees. Felt their eyes on us like spiders crawling up my spine. Had to check my boxes when we got back to make sure I hadn't actually shit myself. Back at camp, Plato collapsed into our tent and was asleep within seconds, the cube still clutched in his fist. I sat outside, shaking, watching the tree line for movement, wondering if those things could cross into the clearing, wondering if they were already here and I just couldn't see them yet.
I must have dozed off eventually because I woke to shouting. The whole camp was up, crowding toward the shack. Dawn was just breaking. I scrambled out of the tent and ran after them, my heart already sinking because I fucking knew something had gone wrong. Jim was standing on the shack's collapsing porch, holding the cube above his head like a prophet with a holy relic. His eyes were wild, spit flying from his mouth as he preached to the gathering crew in a voice that cracked and soared.
"You think this is a job?" he shouted. "You think they're paying you to dig? You're digging up a god's grave. You bring up pieces of something that was buried for a reason. The mountain kept them safe, kept them sleeping, and we're waking them up piece by piece."
The crew was paralyzed, not by his words, by something deeper. That contagious hysteria that turns crowds into mobs. I could see it spreading, the wide eyes, the shaking hands. They moved together like they were all tuned to the same fucked up radio station.
"We have to give it back,"
Jim screamed, shaking the cube.
"Put it back in the hole. Put it all back before..."
Buzz came out of nowhere. A straight punch of Jim's jaw that sent him spiraling off the porch into the dirt. The cube tumbled from his hand. Buzz scooped it up, triumph and rage warring on his face. Then he went pale. I watched the colour drain from his skin as his fingers closed around the cube. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He was feeling it. Whatever Plato was feeling. Whatever Jim felt. The wrongness of it singing directly into his nervous system. His hand shook. The cube nearly slipped from his fingers. "Work's called off today," he said in a thin, hollow voice. Everybody just stay in camp. Don't go near the hole." His authority died right there. You could see in the crew's faces. Fear was one thing. Orders from a scared man were nothing. He stumbled away toward a trailer, still clutching the cube, moving like he'd aged 30 years in 30 seconds. Figured Jim must have jacked it while we were passed out. I booked it back to camp, but Plato was gone. Fucking gone. That night, drunk on whatever cheap vodka he'd smuggled up the mountain, Buzz tried to get his power back the old-fashioned way. He found Jim at the edge of camp and pulled a knife. "You made me look weak," he slurred, swaying on his feet, "in front of the whole fucking crew." "Nobody does that. Nobody." Jim didn't flinch, just looked at him with that hollow, resigned expression. "You did that to yourself the second you touched the cube." Buzz lunged. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds, but felt like watching a nature documentary. Jim moved with the casual efficiency of someone who'd been in 100 bar fights and knew exactly how much violence was necessary. He sidestepped, caught Buzz's wrist, twisted, the knife clattering into the dirt. Then Jim picked up his own knife from his belt, looked at it for a long moment, and threw it into the dark woods. "I'm not fighting you," he said quietly. "The mountain's enemy enough for all of us." Buzz stood there, disarmed and humiliated, making sounds that might have been crying or might have been laughter. He screamed something incoherent at the sky and stumbled away into the dark. The crew watched in silence. Nobody helped him. Nobody followed. "Gentlemen," the voice came from the darkness beyond the generator lights. Soft, polite, utterly chilling. Joseph stepped into the clearing like he'd been waiting there all along, briefcase in hand, suit somehow still pristine. He didn't acknowledge Buzz's screaming or Jim's knife or the cube laying in the dirt. Just looked at us with those empty eyes and delivered his message in a voice that could have been discussing quarterly earnings. Stakeholder engagement indicates suboptimal velocity on deliverables. We're pivoting to an accelerated extraction model with enhanced productivity metrics. Get more stones within 72 hours. No more distractions, no more delays. Inability to achieve these benchmarks will necessitate resource relocation and talent optimization strategies. He let that last word hang in the cold air. Replacement. Not termination, not firing. Replacement. Then he turned and walked back into the darkness, dress shoes crunching on gravel, and he was gone. Nobody slept that night. We just sat around the dying fire, not talking, not looking at each other. Buzz's screaming had faded to whimpering somewhere in the woods. The cube sat on the dirt where Jim had dropped it. Nobody wanted to touch it. I woke up feeling like someone had taken a dump in my skull. Grey as hell and twice as depressing. No buzz, no orders. The crew just sat there, listless, and waiting for something they couldn't name. Jim was the one who noticed the winch cable was taut. "Let's waited," he said, voice flat. "Someone's on the line." We gathered at the edge. The cable stretched down into the hole, disappearing into the perfect darkness, pulled tight under significant weight. "Buzz?" someone called down. No answer. Just the hole's breathing. It took 4 of us to work the winch, hauling up whatever was down there. The cable groaned. Something heavy. Something wrong. 20 feet down, on the narrow ledge where the first boulder sat, we saw him. Buzz. Not fallen. Placed. Sitting upright with his back against the cut earth. Head lolled to one side, eyes wide open and staring at nothing. His skin was dry and pale, like paper. No blood, no wounds, no sign of struggle. He just looked empty, scooped out from the inside. His pocket was turned inside out. The cube was gone. Message received loud and clear. The hole doesn't like losers, doesn't like smart asses either. Buzz fucked around and found out. We left him there. Nobody said it out loud, but we all knew going down to retrieve him meant becoming the next thing placed on that ledge. As I turned over to the hole and saw Plato just looking down at him, nothing much to say. Joseph appeared at lunch with new envelopes, thicker ones. "Incentive bonuses," he said in that soft voice, "for continued dedication." We took them. Of course we fucking took them. I'd be eating ketchup packets for lunch. Joseph could have been Satan himself, and I'd still have taken that blood money. And that afternoon, we went back to digging. There's little Tom DeCree, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved, so I said. "Hush, Tom, never mind it. For when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair." Nobody slept after we left Buzz on that ledge. We just sat around the dying campfire, watching the tree line, waiting for something we couldn't name. The hole felt closer, like it had crept on us while we were passed out, like a fucking predator or something. Joseph arrived at dawn with a stranger. The new guy was maybe 50, with grey stubble and the kind of posture that screamed military. He wore clean work clothes that looked like they'd never seen actual work, and he carried himself with the calm efficiency of someone who'd built bridges in war zones and didn't consider this mountain particularly impressive. Dude scanned the camp like he was taking inventory at a warehouse, checking boxes in his head. "This is Coke," Joseph said, his voice flat as always. "He will oversee retrieval operations going forward." Buzz failed to maintain adequate safety protocols. That failure has been corrected. He held his briefcase a little tighter. The cube was in there. I could feel it somehow, even through the leather. Work resumes in 10 minutes. Mr. Coke will provide specific directives. Coke didn't introduce himself, just nodded once and started walking the perimeter of the hole, occasionally crouching to examine the cut edges, the cable system, the ladder, taking measurements in his head, building a mental schematic. When he spoke, His voice was flat and procedural, like he was reading from a manual. SOP revision effective immediately. 90-minute rotations, 2-man units below grade, 3 operators, surface side. No deviation from protocol. All large stones, basketball size or larger, dark composition, glassy surface will be flagged for inspection. No freelancing, no souvenirs. Questions? Nobody had questions. Well, nobody dared to ask them. And that's when I noticed her. A woman, maybe late 20s, already in work gear like she'd been here for days instead of hours. She had sharp features and darker skin, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She worked with quiet efficiency, checking equipment, organizing tools, moving through the camp like she knew exactly where everything was. When she caught me staring, she gave a small professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Carly," she said, extending a gloved hand. "New hire. You must be Thomas." How did she know my name? "Yeah," I managed. "Welcome to hell, I guess." She laughed. It sounded genuine but felt practiced. "I've worked worse sites. At least you guys have a generator." Something about her was fucked. Not threatening. She moved like she was following a script though. I was exhausted and paranoid, maybe projecting, so I shook her hand and tried to feel hopeful that someone new and seemingly competent had arrived. Plato looked worse in daylight. The black dust had permanently stained the skin under his eyes, and he'd developed a light cough that brought up dark flecks onto his palm. He kept staring at nothing, head cocked like he was listening to something just below the range of human hearing. Q was gone. Joseph had it locked away, but whatever it had done to Plato was still working. "You good, man?" I asked. "It's tuning me, man," he muttered, voice flatter than it should be. "Like, the cube's gone, but the station's still coming in clear. Getting clearer." "What? Words?" He finally looked at me. His pupils were dilated despite the bright morning sun. "Instructions, man. Like someone's broadcasting directly into my skull. Can't change the channel." Coke paired me with Carly on bucket duty. Safe job, easy job. Just hauling loads up from the hole and sorting what came up. She worked without complaint, moved efficiently, and barely spoke. But she watched everything, especially Plato, who'd stopped working entirely to stare into the tree line where the Sutman had manifested yesterday. "Your friend's got the 1,000-yard stare," Carly said, casually, coiling rope. "You see something out there?" It sounded like concern. It felt like an interrogation. "He's just tired. We all are." She made a note in a small pocket notebook I hadn't seen her carrying before. "How long has he been like that?" "Like what?" "Checking out. Talking to himself. Classic disassociation markers." The clinical language made my skin prickle. "You a psychologist or something?" She smiled that practiced smile again. "Just observing. You spend enough time on remote sites, you learn to spot when people are cracking. It's a safety thing." Before I could respond, someone screamed from the hole. Not the working scream of exertion or surprise, the animal scream of someone experiencing catastrophic pain. We ran to the edge. Eddie's partner was scrambling up the ladder, white-faced and shaking, calling for help in a voice that kept cracking into falsetto. "Pull him up! Jesus Christ, pull him up!" We hauled on the winch. Eddie came up thrashing, and I understood the screaming immediately. His left leg below the knee was wrong, not broken, not crushed, liquefied. The bone was visible in places, surrounded by meat that looked like it had been through a blender, and the whole mess was starting to harden into a grey cement-like substance. "The floor!" Eddie shrieked, eyes rolling back in his head. "The fucking floor turned to soup! It swallowed my leg and set like concrete! Get it off! Get it off! Get it off!" Coke was there in seconds. No panic, no hesitation. He had a tourniquet from somewhere, applied it with practiced efficiency, and was barking into a satellite phone before most of us had even processed what we were seeing. "Medevac required. Grid reference follows. 1 casualty, severe trauma to lower left extremity, rapid onset. Request immediate dust-off, over." He paused, listening. "Understood. Secure the site and maintain schedule." Maintain schedule? Eddie was still screaming, and Coke's priority was maintaining schedule. A helicopter came within the hour. Eddie was sedated and loaded, still whimpering about the floor eating him. Coke watched the helicopter disappear off the ridge, made a notation in his own logbook, and turned back to us. Structural integrity of the excavation is compromised. Recommended enhanced caution when working below the 40-foot mark. Resume operations. Just like that, Eddie would become a safety notation, and we went back to work. But the work changed. Coke had specific requirements now, only large stones, dark composition, glassy surfaces. Everything else was disregarded, piled to the side. When a stone met his criteria, he'd take it to a folding table he'd set up, turn his back to the crew for privacy, and crack it open with a geologist's pick. Then he'd examine the interior with a jeweler's loupe, make notes in his log, and usually toss the pieces aside. He was looking for something specific, and he was methodical as a machine about it. Plato had stopped working entirely. He stood at the edge of the tree line, breath fogging in the warm afternoon air, staring at something none of us could see. "They're closer," he whispered when I approached. "Not watching anymore. Praying. Can't you hear them?" I heard nothing but wind and the generator's hum. When I glanced back toward camp, I caught Carly watching us. Not worried, not surprised. Confirmed. Like Plato's breakdown was something she'd been waiting for. Jim walked past us, not making eye contact. He muttered just loud enough for me to hear.
"New face, same machine. They'll grind you boys down at bone dust and order a new part before you hit the ground."
Not a threat. The fact delivered with devastating, weary certainty. Late afternoon, a worker brought up the right stone. I watched Coke crack it open and go very still. A deep glow pulsed from inside. The light cast shadows on his face that made him look ancient, carved from stone himself. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. Just closed the halves carefully, wrapped them in cloth, and signaled Joseph with a single raised finger. Joseph's face when he arrived was the closest thing to emotion I'd ever seen from him. Grimly satisfied. He inspected the stone, made a call on his satellite phone that lasted exactly 30 seconds, and then turned to address the crew. "Excellent progress. We've achieved a critical benchmark in our extraction pipeline." 10 minutes later, another worker found a chunk of twisted metal in the dirt pile. Joseph examined it with those empty eyes, made another call, and peeled off $500 bills like he was tipping a waiter. The effect on the crew was immediate. Exhaustion evaporated, fear transmuted into hungry, desperate energy. Everyone started working faster, digging more frantically, examining every rock like it might be their lottery ticket out of poverty. Carly just watched, taking notes with her eyes on how quickly desperate men could be redirected from terror to avarice with the right financial stimulus. I felt sick. That night around the campfire, the crew was buzzing. Plans were being made, debts imagined as paid, futures calculated. The older workers were cynical but calculating, already spending money they hadn't earned. The younger ones were lit up like kids on Christmas morning. Jim sat in the shadows, sharpening a tool with long, deliberate strokes. When the excited chatter hit a peak, he spoke without looking up.
"You think that's your money?"
His voice cut through the noise like a blade.
"This lubrication makes you run smoother until you break. They paid the same bonus to a kid named Davis back in 2009. Bought himself a guitar with his first payout. They found him in a dry creek bed 3 days later. Wasn't in any report. Just a line item in someone's spreadsheet. Acid replacement."
The fire crackled. Nobody spoke.
"You're now workers. You're daily active users. Meat-based processing units running until their extraction algorithm. And when your engagement metrics drop, they sunset your account. Simple as that."
Jim continued, voice low and gravelly.
"And when you're spent, when you break down or malfunction or stop being profitable, they replace you. Simple as that. Coke knows it. Carly knows it. Joseph sure as hell knows it. Only question is, when you boys will figure it out."
Carly's mask didn't slip. She just watched him with those evaluating eyes, probably adding hostile to management or poor team morale to her notes. I looked at Plato. He was scribbling in his notebook with frantic energy, filling page after page with symbols that looked uncomfortably similar to the ones in that shack. His hand moved faster than thinking would allow. Not writing, transcribing. My hands were already fucked, calloused, stained, looking like they belonged to someone else. Someone who'd worked until they broke, then got tossed in the hole with the rest of the trash. In our tent that night, I tried one more time. We're leaving tonight. Right now. We're not becoming a fucking cautionary tale Jim tells the next batch of suckers. Plato looked at me with those dilated eyes. When he spoke, his voice had that corporate flatness that made my skin crawl. It's too late. The work is done. The resource has been extracted. He tapped his temple. What do you think happens to the drill bit after it strikes oilty? You think they clean it and save it for next time? Or do they leave it in the hole and order a new one? He wasn't talking about the mountain. He was talking about himself. I unzipped the tent flap to get air, to clear my head, to do anything but look at what my friend was becoming. And that's when I saw Carly, standing near the edge of camp, talking quietly into a satellite phone. Too far to hear words, close enough to see the clinical efficiency of her body language. She was filing a report. Movements in the shadows. Jim, standing outside his own tent, also watching her. Our eyes met across the camp. He gave a slow, almost imperceptible shake of his head. I see it too. And it doesn't matter. We're all already forgotten. I lay back in my sleeping bag, listening to Plato's ragged breathing and the distant hum of the generator and the hole's endless respiration. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow that clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. Plato was different in the morning. Not sick different, not feverish or broken or any of the deterioration I'd watched consume him over the past days. The opposite. The tremors were gone. The cough had stopped. His skin had lost its flushed, sweaty sheen and taken on a cold, dry pallor like paper. When he moved, it was with precise economical efficiency, no waste in motion, no human hesitation. He dressed without speaking, packed his notebook, walked past me like I was furniture. Plato, I tried. You good? He paused at the tent flap, looked at me with those dilated pupils. The signal's very clear this morning. And then he was gone. I found him 10 minutes later, standing in front of Coke, speaking in that flat radio signal voice. The southeast wall, 7 feet down. There's a concentration. Coke didn't question him, didn't ask how he knew. Just nodded once and started directing the crew to that section. I grabbed Plato's arm. His skin was cold. Man, what are you doing? How'd you know what's down there? He looked through me. Not at me. Through me. Like I was glass. Like I was already a memory. I understand the manifest now, he said to the air, to the mountain, to something I couldn't perceive. It's not noise. It's inventory. A shipping list. I can hear what needs to be retrieved. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You're just operating on outdated protocols. He pulled his arm free and walked to the hole's edge, standing there like a piece of the mountain itself. I dug where he pointed. 2 hours later, they'd uncovered 3 perfect core samples. Those dark, glowing stones Joseph craved, and a cluster of metallic artifacts, more than we'd found in 3 days of random excavation. The crew was electrified. Even Coke's professional mask cracked slightly, the corners of his mouth twitching in what might have been satisfaction. Joseph arrived within the hour. He examined the hall with hands that actually trembled, made 3 separate satellite calls, and started handing out bonuses with an almost manic efficiency. The numbers kept climbing. 200, 500, 1,000 for the guy who'd been topside when Plato gave the location. Plato received nothing. He didn't seem to notice. He just stood at the hole's edge, staring down, occasionally making notes in his book with that inhuman speed. Jim watched all this from the shadows of his tent. When Plato's back was turned, he caught my eye and spat into the dirt. The message was clear.
Boy just signed his own pink slip. They own him now.
Evening came. The crew was celebrating, counting money, making plans. I expected Plato to come back to our tent. We'd share a look, he'd snap out of it, and then we leave. He didn't come back. I found him dragging his bedroll to the lip of the hole, arranging it on the bare rock, maybe 3 feet from the edge. What are you doing?
The signal's clearer here.
He didn't look up.
Interference is minimum. I can process the data more efficiently.
Process the data? Plato, you're not a fucking radio. He finally looked at me. His face was blank, serene. The face of someone who'd found religion or lost their mind. And I couldn't tell which was worse.
I'm more useful here. You should go back to the tent.
Felt like getting dumped and fired and evicted all at once. Dude just ghosted. Moved this shit to the hole like it had better Wi-Fi. He'd moved out, divorced me, chosen the whole of everything we'd been through together. I wanted to scream at him, shake him, drag him away. Instead, I just stood there, feeling that profound, gut-wrenching abandonment settle into my bones. Jim appeared at my elbow.
Come on, kid. Nothing you can do for him now.
He's sick. He's not thinking straight.
He's thinking straighter than he ever has. That's the problem. The word gets in and it don't go out. He's not yours anymore. He's theirs.
I went back to my tent alone, lay in my sleeping bag, staring at Plato's empty one. The generator hummed. A hole breathed. Somewhere outside, Plato was probably taking notes on the rhythm of that breathing, cataloguing it, processing it into useful data. The tent flap opened, and Carly slipped inside, moving with that practiced efficiency. But her energy was different tonight, not clinical, buzzing with something electric and hungry. He's magnificent, she said, voice low and intense. She didn't sit, just stood there, looking at me with eyes that gleamed in the dim light. Your friend, he's transcendent. He's not just a worker anymore. He's essential. He's sick. He's evolved. She moved closer. I could smell her. Sweat and dust and something underneath like ozone. Do you understand what he represents? It's beautiful. The way she said beautiful made my skin crawl. There was arousal in it. Not sexually exactly, something deeper. She was turned on by his transformation, by the power he now represented, by his complete subsumption into the system. You're fucking insane, all of you. Am I? She knelt beside my sleeping bag. Or am I the only one being honest about what's happening here? He found his purpose, his significance. He matters now in a way he never did, hauling garbage or sleeping in motels or whatever dead-end shit he was doing before. Her hand touched my arm. I should have pulled away. Should have told her to get out. But I was so tired. So isolated. So fucking alone. You could be essential too, she said softly. You're connected to him. That's a form of power. They notice that. Joseph notices. You have proximity to something valuable. I don't want to be valuable to Joseph. Everyone matters, Thomas. Everyone wants to be seen, to be necessary. You think you're different? You think your poverty is more noble than everyone else's? She was closer now. I could feel a breath on my face. This wasn't seduction, not really. It was recruitment. An offer of significance through proximity. A reflected glow. He's not sick, she whispered. He's awake. And you're still dreaming about escape, when the only real choice is what role you play in what's coming. I wanted to push her away, to defend Plato, to defend myself, but she was right about one thing. I was desperate. Desperate for human contact, desperate to matter, desperate for any anchor in this nightmare. What happened next wasn't passion, it was desperation. Two animals seeking warmth in the slaughterhouse, pretending for a few minutes that we weren't both being processed. She knew exactly what she was doing. I knew exactly what I was giving up. I did it anyway. Shame hits different in the dark. In the moment, you could almost convince yourself you're making a choice. After alone with yourself, you know exactly what you are. Carly left before dawn. No goodbye, no pretense. She'd gotten what she came for. Another data point. Another compromised asset. Another person isolated and ashamed. Jim was standing outside when I unzipped the tent flap, smoking. Not looking at me directly, but seeing everything anyway.
So that's your move, huh?
His voice was gravel scraped over concrete. No anger in it, just profound, devastating disappointment.
The machine grinds your friend into paste and you fuck its secretary? You think that makes you safe? That makes you part of the furniture, not the product.
I couldn't meet his eyes. You don't understand.
I understand plenty. I understand you just traded whatever claim you had to moral high ground for 10 minutes of feeling less alone. I understand you're scared and broke and desperate. We all are. Difference is, some of us remember which side we're on.
He took a long drag, blew smoke into the pre-dawn grey.
Sal's gone. Wasn't in his tent all night.
The shame curdled instantly into ice-cold terror. What?
Gone. Noticed around 2 a.m. when I got up to piss. Tent's empty. Boots are gone.
He flicked the cigarette into the dirt.
You were busy, so I figured I'd let you know when you came up for air.
Coax a whistle cut through the camp. 6 a.m. Assembly time. The crew gathered, bleary and hungover. Coax stood with his clipboard, counting heads, expression flat. One absent. Sal. Check the perimeter. 5-minute search radius, then begin shift. Not concerned, not worried. Procedural. Like checking inventory and knowing a missing unit. We spread out, calling Sal's name, moving through the woods in expanding circles. Found nothing. No tracks, no signs. Like it simply evaporated. When we returned to the clearing, Plato was standing at the hole's edge. He'd been there the whole time, hadn't joined the search. He pointed down with one steady finger. He's here. He answered the call. We hauled up the cable. It was weighted. Heavy. Wrong. 20 feet down in a narrow shaft that hadn't existed yesterday. We found Sal. He was dead. Not fallen, not placed. He dug himself in there. His hands were shredded to bone, fingernails torn off, surrounded by a perfect circle of those dark stones, like he'd been arranging them, cataloguing them, processing them until his heart gave out. His face was serene, almost peaceful. The face of someone who'd found what they were looking for. The crew went silent, not shocked, broken. That silence when everyone's too fucked up to even swear. When horror becomes just another Tuesday. Coke knelt at the edge, examining the new shaft, the stone arrangement. He checked his watch, made a note in his log. Efficient, autonomous excavation. Note the precision of the circle. Approximately 7 hours of work at accelerated pace. Cause of death, Cardiac arrest induced by extreme exertion. Log entry complete. He was analyzing the work product. Sal's death was interesting primarily for the data it provided about unmonitored excavation efficiency. Something inside me snapped. "You knew!" I screamed at Plato. "You fucking knew! You heard him go down! You let him!" Plato turned those empty eyes on me. When he spoke, his voice had all the warmth of a diagnostic readout. The system identified inefficiencies and executed corrective measures. His extraction protocols were non-optimal, had to disrupt a legacy system. A pause. You cling to sentiment. You cling to her. Flick of his gaze toward Carly, who watched from beside Joseph with that neutral mask. Your operational efficiency is compromised, man. You're generating interference in the data stream. Legacy protocols. Noise. Just noise. I knocked him down and stormed off. That's what it was to him now. Not his friend, not his partner. Just interference in the data stream. A bug to be debugged. A problem to be solved. The betrayal is complete. All that shit we went through together. The holding cell life, sleeping in the van, sharing the last cigarette. Fucking deleted. Replaced with pure system logic. Plato had internalized the company's language so completely he couldn't even recognize me as a human anymore. I staggered away from the hole, from his empty stare, from Carly's cool assessment. Bile rose in my throat. My hands shook. I'd betrayed him. He didn't even care enough to be angry because I'd already been categorized as irrelevant data. Jim intercepted me behind the tool shed, pulling me into the shadows with surprising strength. His eyes were fierce, more alive than I'd seen them.
You see it now? Clear? You're with me, or you're with them. Or you're in the hole. Those are your options.
I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He leaned in close, voice dropping to barely audible.
They want their core sample so bad. Let's give it to them. Tomorrow, on the final pull, when they get whatever they're actually looking for, we don't secure the winch. We let the whole goddamn thing drop. Cable, bucket, their precious rock, everything. We jam the works. We bury their prize and seal the fucking hole.
His grip on my shoulder tightened.
It'll be a fight. Coke will come for us, maybe your friend too. Maybe Carly. But we end this. One way or another. We end it. You in?
I looked back toward camp. Plato stood sentinel at the hole's edge, notebook in hand, taking measurements. Joseph and Carly conferring in low tones. Coke logging Sal's death as acceptable parameters. The generator humming its endless song. The mountain breathing. The system processing. The assembly line running smoothly. I was out of choices, out of friends, out of dignity. All I had left was rage and shame and the desperate need to break something before it finished breaking me. I met Jim's eyes. I'm in. And so he was quiet. And that very night, as Tom was sleeping, he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. I didn't sleep after agreeing to Jim's plan. Just lay there in the dark, listening to the generator's hum and feeling something gnaw at my gut. Jim's eyes when he talked about sabotage, it didn't seem right. It was the same look I'd seen on Plato's face before he moved to the hole's edge. Desperate. The tent flap opened. Carly. I sat up. Get out. Listen to me. Not seductive this time. Urgent. Almost afraid. You're making a mistake trusting Jim. He doesn't want to stop the operation. He wants what Plato has. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? She crouched beside my sleeping bag. Jim worked here before, 2009. He found a stone, held it for 3 days straight. He dug more in those 3 days than the entire crew managed in 2 weeks. My stomach dropped. You're lying. Joseph cut him off. Standard protocol for dependency behavior. Jim tried to steal stones. They banned him from the site. But he's always coming back, itching for that power. She leaned closer. He's not saving anyone, Thomas. He's just a junkie trying to score. And what are you? What's your angle? I'm offering you a choice. Her voice dropped. Real power. Not this. She gestured at the tent, the camp, the hole. Actual control over your life. That's what the stones do. They give you agency, clarity, purpose. By turning you into that, I pointed towards where Plato had set up his vigil. He's not lost. He's awake. For the first time in his life, he's not afraid. Isn't that worth something? She left before I could answer, and I was left with her last words. I couldn't stay in that tent. The walls felt like they were closing in, and Carly's words kept circling around. I grabbed my flashlight and headed into the woods, back towards the graffiti shack. Not thinking, just moving. Maybe something there had the truths I needed. The trapdoor was obvious once you knew to look for it. A square of newer plywood set into the rotted floor, hidden under a pile of old canvas tops. I pulled it open. Wooden stairs descended into darkness that smelled like mildew and old paper. The basement was small, concrete walls. A single work table pushed against one side. No cosmic altar, no ancient diagrams, just a 1950s era workspace with a metal filing cabinet, a desk lamp, and scattered papers weighed down by rocks. I started reading. Journal fragments, not a complete narrative. Different handwriting, different dates spanning months. Day 12, handled one of the black stones during sorting. For 6 hours afterwards, I could see in the dark perfect clarity, better than any flashlight. Saw colours that don't have names. Foreman says it'll wear off. Day 28, Mitchell crushed his hand in the winch, screaming, bones showing through. Then he held one of the stones and went quiet, worked his whole shift one-handed, said he couldn't feel pain, wouldn't let the stone go. We had to pry it out of his hand at a shift change. His fingers were white, frostbitten. Day 45, the foreman's been holding a stone for 3 days, says he can hear it talk to it. He's finding them faster than the rest of us combined. His eyes are bloodshot, won't eat, won't sleep, just digs and listens and digs. Faded company memo, clipping to the journal pages. Memorandum. Operational findings, Site 7G. The geological samples continue to exhibit temporary enhancement properties in human subjects. Effects documented: sensory acuity increase, pain suppression, apparent precognitive ability. Subjects report knowing location of additional samples. Duration: 6 to 72 hours, depending on exposure level and individual physiology. Risk assessment: moderate to high. Dependency behaviors emerge in 60% of subjects after 48 hours of continuous exposure. Recommendation: maintain operational security. Rotate exposed personnel before dependency manifests. Discontinue site operations once primary objective achieved. A hand-scrawled note, pinned to the concrete wall with a rusty nail. They shut us down, said it was too dangerous, but they took the stones. All of them. They didn't destroy them, they're using them somewhere else. This isn't over. It'll never be over. There's too much money in it. That was it. No ancient evil, no sleeping god. Just a valuable, addictive resource that gave desperate people a taste of power and a company they'd been mining it and managing the fallout for 70 years. I sat there on those stairs and got it. This wasn't some ancient evil bullshit. It was just fucking drug dealers. Company had the product, we were the junkies, and everyone was fighting over who got to stay high. Jim didn't want revolution, he wanted access. Plato didn't want enlightenment, he wanted more stones. Joseph, Coke, Carly, they were the dealers, and I was caught in the middle of a junkie dispute. When I emerged from the shack, dawn was breaking and Jim was waiting outside my tent. He had tools in hand and his eyes had that bright, manic shine I now recognized.
You're with me, right?
He was vibrating with energy.
Today. We do it today.
Do what exactly?
We take Plato. Get him away from the hole, away from Coke. Sober him up. Make him see what they've done to him.
Or you get to use him to find those other stones. Jim's face went hard.
Think I'm using you? Look at yourself, kid. You fucked the company's spy. You watched your best friend turn into their puppet. You still cash the checks. I'm the only one here trying to do something.
It hurt because it was true. All of it. What happens after we take him? Jim's intensity flickered. For just a second, I saw the real man underneath. Tired, desperate, not nearly as certain as he pretended.
We figure it out, but he doesn't belong to them. He's one of us.
One of us. The rally cry of every doomed rebellion. Mid-morning, most of the crew was down in the hole in rotation. Topside was quiet, just Coke on the radio coordinating the dig. Carly in her tent with her endless notes, a few scattered workers sorting rocks. Joseph hadn't arrived yet. Jim moved fast. We caught Plato near the supply tent. Jim had a canvas bag, swung it into the side of Plato's head with a dull thud. Not hard enough to seriously injure, just enough to stun. Plato went down and we dragged him into the tree line toward the shack, his heels leaving tracks in the dirt. He didn't fight much, didn't scream, just looked at us with those empty, amused eyes. You think taking me away from the hole changes anything? His voice was steady, despite the blood trickling from his temple. It's not about proximity, Jim. It's about understanding. You had it once. You lost it. Now you're jealous.
Shut up.
Jim was tying him to a support beam in the shack, movements frantic.
You're coming down. You're gonna see what they did to you.
I see perfectly. Back at the camp, I heard shouting. The winch wasn't working. Jim had sabotaged it while Coke was distracted. Nothing destroyed, just disabled. The crew in the hole couldn't come up quickly. Topside was minimal personnel. Jim appeared with a hunting rifle. His rifle, not company issue. He herded 3 remaining workers into the mess tent and started zip-tying their hands.
Jim, what the fuck are you doing? Buying time.
His hands shook as he worked.
Joseph shows up in an hour. We need to be gone by then.
Gone where? With a kidnapped man and stolen company property? He rounded on me, rifle swinging.
You want to stay? Be my guest. Become the next Plato, the next Ray. I've seen this play out 12 times. You think you're different? You're feedstock, kid. Raw material for their operation.
I left him there with Plato and the hostages. Walked back towards camp because I needed to think. I need to breathe. I need to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. Joseph had arrived early. He stood with Carly and Coke near the disabled winch, not panicking, just assessing the situation with clinical calm. When I stepped into the clearing, all 3 heads turned towards me. I raised my hand. It's Jim. He's lost it. He's got Plato and 3 guys tied up in the shack. Joseph adjusted his tie. And you? I'm trying to stop this before someone gets killed. Carly studied me with those evaluating eyes. Are you? Or are you trying to figure out which side gives you the best odds of survival? She wasn't wrong. Coke was practical. Where are they? I'll take you, but no guns. Jim's armed. If you go in aggressive, people are gonna die. Joseph considered this for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, nodded once. Very well. Lead us. We walked in silence through the woods. Joseph in his impeccable suit, Coke with his procedural calm, Carly taking mental notes on everything, and me wondering which one of us would be dead in an hour. The shack. Jim had the rifle trained on the door. The hostages were quiet and terrified in the corner. Plato sat tied to his beam, watching everything with detached interest like he was observing an experiment. Joseph stood in the doorway, unarmed, immaculate. Jim, this is unproductive.
Unproductive?
Jim's voice shook with rage and need.
You turned my friend into a fucking zombie. You're dosing him with those stones, making him into your hunting dog.
We're not dosing anyone. The stones are compensation for exceptional work. Plato earned his access.
Access? You mean addiction?
Joseph's voice went cold. Semantics. He's more effective now. He's compensated accordingly. You had the same opportunity in 2009, Jim. You chose to leave. That was your right. This, he gestured at the gun, the hostages, is theft.
I left because you wouldn't let me stay. You cut me off.
There it was. The truth laid bare. Jim wasn't a revolutionary. He was an exile begging to get back in. Joseph's face remained neutral. You became erratic, unreliable. We implement user retention strategies and dependency mitigation protocols. Your engagement metrics failed to meet our sustainability thresholds. Everyone shut up. All eyes swung to me. I looked at Joseph, at Carly, at Coke. You're using us, dangling power in front of desperate people, watching who breaks and who bends. Ray, Buzz. It didn't fail. You discarded them when they stopped being profitable. Carly's voice was sharp. And you're different. You took the money. You took me. You're standing here pretending you have moral high ground when you've been complicit since day one. I turned to Jim. And you don't want to save Plato. You want what he has. You'd throw me, him, all of us into the hole if it meant getting another hit.
That's not true.
But his voice was quiet, gun lowering slightly. To Plato, and you're not enlightened, you're high. And when it wears off, you'll do anything to feel that way again. Plato smiled. A terrible, serene smile. But it doesn't wear off, Thomas. Not if you keep feeding it. Silence. Joseph straightened his tie. So, what do you propose? I looked at each of them. Joseph and his crew. Cold as ice, efficient as hell. Offering a hit of power in exchange for your fucking soul. Same shit, different deal. Here's what happens. Jim and me walk. Anyone else who wants out comes with us. You keep your rocks, your operation, your whole fucked up setup. Coke's voice was flat. And the witnesses? Who would believe us? Magic rocks in a mountain to make you feel like God? But you sound insane, mate. Joseph considered this. Long, calculating silence. No. You're not leverage, Thomas. You're a data point. Jim's a liability requiring remediation. Plato's a high-value asset. Those are the only categories in our operational framework. He signaled Coke with the barest nod. Coke moved towards Jim. Jim raised the rifle. And Plato laughed. Still tied to that beam, blood dried on his face. He laughed. You don't get it, do you, T? There's no walking away. The stones don't just give you power, they give you clarity. I can see the pattern now. The company's not the bug in the system, man. Poverty's the legacy code. Desperation's the corrupted data. They're offering us a way out of the beta test, man. And you're too scared to onboard with the new platform. My voice broke. This isn't a way out. It's a cage with better lighting. Then stay in the dark. In that confined space, the gunshot wasn't a sound, but a physical force. My eyes sealed themselves. Sight was impossible. So the world collapsed to a single sense. The acrid, burning smell of gun smoke. Fuck. I just couldn't think of anything. Jim shoved Coke back as the rifle went off. The bullet didn't hit anyone. It punched through the rotted floorboards between them and kept going, hitting the hollow space beneath, old mining tunnels from some previous abandoned operation. The ground wasn't solid. It never was. A deep, grinding rumble, not the mountain responding, just physics. The earth gave way. The sinkhole opened like a mouth, swallowing the shack in seconds. Timber screaming, glass shattering, the world tilting sideways as the floor became a slope, became nothing. Joseph and Carly backpedaled like fucking gazelles. Plato, right beside them, face blank, jogging like he was late for a Zoom call. Jim bounced off the rim, alive, but looking punched. The hostages' zip ties popped. They bolted into the trees, white tails flashing. Coke and I dropped into the darkness. 15 feet, tops. But it felt like the whole damn mountain filled my mouth with dirt, splinters, rot, everything. I hit the slope hard enough to knock the wind out of me, and slid another few feet through loose dirt before coming to rest against something that might have been a wall or might have been debris. Silence. Ringing ears. Dust everywhere. I tried to move. Everything hurt, but nothing felt broken. My phone was still good, besides a crack. My flashlight was broken. The only light came from above. A jagged hole maybe 20 feet up, grey sky visible through the settling dust. Then I heard a wet, laboured breathing nearby. I crawled towards it, hands finding fabric, then warmth, then blood. A lot of blood. Coke? A massive support beam had come down on his legs and lower torso. He was pinned, bleeding, breathing in shallow wet gasps that meant internal damage. In the faint light filtering from above, I could see his face. The professional mask was gone. He just looked scared and tired. "Check the beam," he managed, voice weak, almost conversational. "Can you move it?" I tried, put my back into it. It didn't budge even slightly. It would take 4 men and equipment we didn't have. "Figures," he said. Above us, I heard voices. Joseph's, calm and clinical. Carly's, taking notes. Then Joseph's again, louder, calling down into the hole. "Coke! Respond!" Coke tried to answer, but only managed a wet cough. Joseph's voice continued, not waiting for a reply. "Structural failure. Site is compromised." Carly logged. "Containment breach. 2 personnel unaccounted for. Extract salvageable materials and close the site." "Equipment priorities?" Carly's voice. "Briefcase and Plato. Everything else is secondary." I heard footsteps retreating. The murmur of a satellite phone call. Words like cleanup crew and 2 hours and acceptable loss. They weren't coming down. They were writing us off. We sat in the dark. Minutes passed. Coke's breathing got worse. More liquid, more laboured. He was drowning slowly from the inside. "This is worse than the islands," he said suddenly, voice distant. "What?" "Palulu, Iwo Jima. That was a CB. The airstrips where the mortars fell. Which boys my age get cut in half, drowned in the surf." He coughed blood. "Thought I'd seen the worst men could do, but at least that had a reason. A flag. An enemy you could see." I stared at him. "How old are you?" 101. Born 1924. The number didn't make sense until it did. until I remembered Plato's transformation, Ray's drowning, the stones. After the war, I had nothing. Coke continued, his voice flat with confession. No job. No prospects. Got hired by a geological survey company in '53. First site was West Virginia, old coal country, already dying. First day down, found one of the stones. Smooth, black, warm. Slipped it in my pocket. He paused, struggling for breath. That night, I felt it. Strength, clarity. The shrapnel pain in my leg disappeared. I worked 3 shifts without sleeping. Didn't feel tired. By the end of the week, I looked 10 years younger. By the end of the month, I was foreman. Stone had done to him what it was doing to Plato, what Jim was so addicted to. The company offered me permanent work. Site supervisor, multiple locations, competitive salary, and benefits. He laughed, wet and bitter. 70 years, dozens of sites, hundreds of men cycled through, used up, discarded. Ray, Sal, Buzz. I processed them, logged them, marked them acceptable losses, and moved to the next site. His hand found mine in the dark, gripped it with surprising strength. I told myself it was just a job, just following procedure. But I knew. I always knew what we were doing to you boys. His voice broke. I became the machine, grinding you up for parts. For what? More years to remember their faces? I traded my soul for a pension plan that never ends. The silence stretched. His breathing rattled. They're not coming for us, he said finally. Matter of fact, Joseph's already written the report. In 2 hours, cleanup crew arrives. They'll bulldoze the sinkhole, haul off the equipment, mark it geological instability. You'll be buried under 10 feet of fill. And then we're both dead. I am. You don't have to be. He fumbled in his jacket with shaking, bloody fingers. Pulled out a stone. Smooth, polished, smaller than the raw ones we'd been digging up. It gleamed faintly in the darkness. This one's mine. Been mine since '56, West Virginia. First one I ever found. I recoiled. I don't want it. It's not about want. It's about survival. His grip tightened on my wrist. The stones bond to you over time. Extended contact creates a link. This one's kept me alive 70 years, but it's not magic. It's alone. Every day of youth, every moment of strength. Borrowed against the dead that comes due. He pressed it into my palm. Cold. So cold it burned. You take it from me. It severs the bond. I age fast. It'll kill me. But for you, it'll give you enough strength to dig out. Enough time to decide what kind of man you want to be. I can't. You can, and you will. Because the alternative is dying here with me. And I'll be damned if I drag another kid down. His voice was steel underneath the weakness. Take it. Run. Start over. Or end up like me. Your choice. The moment the stone settled into my palm, it activated. Not warm, cold. A needle of ice shot my arm, into my chest, wrapping around my spine like wire. My muscles tightened. Fibers reinforcing, becoming denser, stronger. My heartbeat slowed, became metronomic. efficient. The panic, the desperation, the fear, all of it filed away as irrelevant data. I was stronger, but I was also hollow. It wasn't the high Plato described, it was mechanical clarity. My body moved with purpose, but my mind was a passenger. Stone didn't empower me, it optimized me. I wasn't Thomas anymore. I was a tool wearing Thomas's face. And Coke was aging. Fast. I watched wrinkles deepen into crevasses. Hair whitened, thinned, fell. Eyes clouded over like milk. Skin sagged, liver spotted, translucent. In 30 seconds, he went from looking 40 to looking like a 100-year-old corpse. He smiled, ghastly, relieved. Finally, he whispered. A day off. He died. The beam on his chest no longer mattered. I moved without thinking. The stone's cold logic directed me. I gripped the beam that had killed him, oak, waterlogged, 300 pounds minimum. I lifted it. My muscles didn't strain. They functioned. I tossed it aside like cardboard. And then I dug. Hands clawing through earth, pulling away timber, wrenching aside rocks. No fatigue, no pain. Just relentless mechanical progress. My hands bled. I didn't notice. My fingernails cracked and tore. Irrelevant. I was machine solving a problem. Exit. Upward. Now. After what might have been an hour, time felt slippery. My hands broke through to open air. I pulled myself out into the ruins of the camp. The hole was quiet. The forest was quiet. The sun was setting. Hours had passed. I stood there, covered in dirt and Coke's blood. Stone cold and heavy in my pocket. The clarity was already fading, leaving me shaking, nauseated, aware of what I'd just done. I hadn't escaped. I'd tunneled out like an animal. I heard engines, voices. I dug behind the wreckage of the mess tent. A small convoy, 2 trucks, 6 men in unmarked work gear. No company logos, no names. Just efficient, silent labor. They were salvaging the generator, Coke's equipment, anything valuable or incriminating. Jim was cable tied to a tree near the trailhead. Alive, but broken. Face swollen, shirt bloody. Not struggling. Just staring at nothing with empty eyes. Joseph stood over him, speaking into his phone. That same clinical tone. Carly photographed the sinkhole, taking notes, documentation, liability mitigation. Plato helped the crew load equipment, moving with eerie efficiency. He glanced at the sinkhole once. No emotion. I was already forgotten. Seal the sinkhole, Joseph instructed the crew. Standard fill. Market subsidence, not collapse. Permits are filed. A worker nodded, started a bulldozer. Joseph into his phone. 2 losses, acceptable parameters. Thurberg 7G is closed. Relocate remaining assets to Lassen 4A. Timeline 72 hours. I was crouched 20 yards away in the shadows. I could try to free Jim, rush Joseph, scream for help. But Stone's logic was still in my veins, whispering in cold, rational tones. You will die. You will fail. You have no leverage, no allies, no proof. You have one advantage. They think you're dead. For just a moment, Jim's gaze drifted toward my hiding spot. Maybe he saw me. Maybe he didn't. His lips moved, forming silent words. Run. I did. I melted back into the tree line, moving silently, the stone's residual strength guiding my steps. Behind me, the bulldozer's engine roared to life. I didn't look back, and I didn't think for a moment about Plato anymore. Fuck him. I wake up at 6:47 a.m. from the same nightmare. Plato's standing in that underground chamber we never reached, back turned, surrounded by arranged stones in geometric patterns I almost understand. He won't turn around. His voice comes out flat, automated. You're clocked in forever, T. The benefits are terrible, but you keep showing up. I jolt awake in my apartment. Portland. Studio in the Pearl District. Ikea furniture, Spotify playing lo-fi beats, the whole I'm a together 20-something bullshit aesthetic. Like I'm performing functional adult for some invisible audience. The routine begins. Pour over coffee from beans I researched on Reddit. 10-minute guided meditation app, day 67. Though I've repeated day 67 4 times because I keep forgetting I already did it. Journaling in a moleskin. Gratitude, sunlight, hot water, having options. It reads like corporate training for being a real person. At 10 a.m, I have a video date. Chloe, marketing consultant, 26, likes hiking and natural wine. She's on my laptop screen, smiling, asking about my hobbies. I'm charming, self-deprecating, engaged. She's impressed I'm so together for 22 and taking time for self-improvement. Yeah, it took some time to figure things out after school, I say. I wasn't lying, exactly, just empty words filling up empty space. Like I was auditioning for a life I didn't want. She suggests coffee next week. I say yes. Won't remember to text her back. She won't be surprised. We're both just playing our parts in this fucked up dance of pretending to give a shit. We're both performing connection for an audience of algorithms. The second bedroom is supposed to be an office. I don't use it for work. Just this. Multiple monitors. Browser tabs in the hundreds. Folders labeled personnel, sites, timeline, proof. I search for Joseph every day. Reverse image search, business registries, LinkedIn corporate filings, Zoom info leaked datasets, every shell company name I can invent. Geothermal surveying, Northwest Geodetic, Thurberg Mineral. Nothing. Zero. It's like it was rendered in a lab, deployed for a single purpose, and then erased. Carly, security contractor databases, private intelligence firms, military discharge records. Her face yields no matches. She should be somewhere. Ex-CIA, Blackwater, corporate espionage. I search female security consultants Montana and get stock photos. Coke. I find him. Kurt Okenhauser, CB, born 1924, listed MIA in the Pacific Theater, 1944. The archived photos degraded, but the eyes could be his. That would make him 101. Not possible. Unless I search life extension industrial minerals and get transhumanist blogs and conspiracy sites. I read them anyway. Plato's the hardest. I never knew his real name. Never asked. I try facial recognition on a cropped photo from my phone. Him grinning at the motel on day 1. No hits. Missing persons reports. Nothing. It's like he was born in that van and died in the chamber in the months between were a glitch. The hole itself. Forest Service report. Unauthorized excavation. Thurberg Wilderness Area. Sector 7G. Fine, $2,500 paid by Northwest Geodetic Incorporated. I searched the company. Dissolved 2005. 20 years before the dig. Impossible. The most terrifying thing isn't that they covered their tracks. It's that there were no tracks to cover. Like fucking ghosts. Not there until you look away. Then they're everywhere. Negative space bullshit that makes you doubt your own eyes. My proof stored in a fireproof lockbox under my bed. A photo on my phone. The hole. Grainy, taken from the edge. Day 1. The metadata says the date and 3 weeks after the collapse. Location, unknown. That's wrong. I remember taking this before we even descended. Plato's notebook, wrapped in plastic, pages covered in frantic handwriting, diagrams, those symbols from the shack. The ink looks fucked, faded 1 second, sharp the next, like it's breathing or some shit. Makes my eyes water if I stare too long. $400 in remaining per diem cash. I never deposited it. The bills feel wrong, too crisp, too heavy. Sometimes the serial numbers look rearranged. I tried to spend a 20 at a grocery store once. The cashier held up to the light, frowning. I think this is fake. It wasn't fake. It was other. A photo of me and Plato, laughing, arms around each other. I don't remember taking it. The metadata says it was shot the morning after the collapse. Plato's eyes, if you zoom in, vacant. That post-conversion stare. In the background, barely visible, a woman's silhouette. Carly's posture. I open the lockbox. My fingers brush a page titled The Godstones and then pulled back into the memory of the whole. The cough hits. I double over, hacking into the black bandana I keep in my pocket now. Open my hand. Black dust. Glittering with faint iridescent blue threads, like the veins in those stones. Proof ain't for convincing other people. It's for convincing yourself you haven't lost your fucking mind. And I'm running low on convincing. Sold Coke Stone 3 months back. Rent was due. Fridge was empty. And that fucking thing was humming in my drawer like a vibrator from hell. Needed it gone. Found a buyer through Reddit, r/obscure mineralia. Posted a vague listing. Unique geological sample. Small. Black. Warm to touch. Unknown origin. The buyer called himself TechBro_ascending. Claimed to be a biohacker in the Bay Area. Wanted it for meditation enhancement. Offered $100,000 through crypto. No questions. Met in a Denny's lot like we were selling weed. Dude shows up in a Tesla, hoodie, that tech bro smile that says, "I disrupt industries." Torched the stone and lit up like he'd seen God. "I can feel it already. This is gonna change everything." I handed it over, took the cash, drove away. 2 weeks later, I checked the forum. His account was deleted. His last post still visible in Google Cache. Can't sleep, can't stop working. Haven't eaten in 4 days. No further posts. I didn't follow up. I told myself I didn't kill him, but I knew what the stone was. Sold it anyway. That makes me what? Complicit? Just another node in the supply chain? I go for a run to clear my head. The cough is worse today. I need air. The urban park is sleek, manicured, full of young professionals walking dogs. I see a man in a charcoal suit walking a greyhound. The dog never sniffs, never strains, just walks in perfect sync, staring straight ahead. The man's face is bland, forgettable. Not Joseph, but the aesthetic is identical. A woman on a bench with Carly's precise posture, black straight, tablet in lap, stylus moving in controlled strokes. She never looks up. Could be anyone. But my pulse spikes. An old man feeding pigeons near the pond. Skeletal, weathered, wearing a faded military jacket. When I pass, he turns. For one instant, I see Coke's pale, empty eyes. Then he blinks, and he's just old and tired. They are not them. But they feel like placeholders. Like the company's aesthetic leaking into my world, marking territory. I run harder. Get turned around, end up in a residential area. Craftsman houses, gardens, families. Stop to catch my breath. Look up at a yellow house with a wraparound porch. In the second floor window, Plato's face, staring down, mouth moving silently. "Why did you leave me down there, man?" I blink. Just the reflection of a tree branch. The cough seizes me. I bend double, hand braced against the mailbox. Into my palm, black dust. But this time, they move. Writhing. Alive. Crazy ain't seeing shit that ain't there. It's knowing in your gut that what you're looking at is just fucking wallpaper covering the real deal. And the real deal is a hole that wants to eat you. Back in my apartment, hands shaking, pour whiskey, don't drink it. My laptop pings. An encrypted email client I don't remember installing opens automatically. Sleek interface, corporate, logoless. Subject, Project Phoenix. Morning. Our records indicate your contract with Site 7G, Thurberg, was terminated prematurely due to structural failure. Your performance assessment remains on file and has been reviewed. A position has opened at Site 8A, coordinates attached. The signing bonus has been adjusted for inflation and your unique skill set. Your qualifications: exposure history, Category 2, survived direct contact with bonded artifact. Resilience markers: excellent, contamination stable, functional decay within acceptable parameters. Discretion: verified. 0 external disclosures, 0 law enforcement contact. Benefits include comprehensive medical, dental, and access to specialized treatment for your condition. Report within 72 hours for onboarding. Compliance is confirmation. Do not reply. This message will self-delete in 72 hours. Attachments: GPS coordinates, middle of nowhere, Montana wilderness. A signed digital contract. My signature. Lifted from my state ID, dated 6 months ago. The day after the collapse. I never signed this, or don't remember signing it. Deposit confirmation. $300,000 just cleared through my crypto wallet. Timestamp, 30 seconds ago. I open my banking app with shaking hands. The $15,000 is there. Real. Spendable. My phone buzzes. New calendar alert I didn't create. Flight, PDX, BZN, Bozeman. Tomorrow, 6 a.m, pack for cold weather. Work boots required. I never got out. I was just on unpaid leave. And the boss is a mountain. And the HR department is a hole in the earth. And the performance review is whether you die screaming or smiling. I don't fight it. And just like that, I can breathe again. 6 months of holding my fucking breath, and now I can exhale. Because the hole wants me, needs me. And being needed beats being free. Like a muscle I've been clenching for 6 months, finally unclenching. I pack. Carhartts, thermal layers, the boots I bought and never threw away. Plato's notebook wrapped carefully like a Bible. The cursed cash that might spend at the camp. That poem of his I got printed out. I look around the apartment. It already looks staged. An Airbnb. Someone else's idea of what a together 20-something lives in. The lease is paid through December, month to month after. The landlord can keep the deposit. I cough into my hand once more and wipe it against my jeans, forcing myself to think clearly. The job was garbage. The management bordered on unhinged, and the work had literally broken men's minds. Yeah, it was tangible, and I was good at it. And I couldn't remember who I was, they did. The apartment door clicks shut behind me as I leave it unlocked and don't bother with a final glance backwards. My neighbour appears in the hallway. A young guy who works in tech, perpetually pleasant. "Hey man, early flight?" I nod at him. "Work trip." Cool. He shifts his weight slightly. "What do you do again?" "Extraction." He doesn't probe any further. The pre-dawn streets stretch empty before me as I walk through the city. Coffee shops still shuttered in the darkness. This isn't a dash to the airport, but something more like magnetism pulling me forward. I'm not fleeing toward the hole, but escaping from the fugue state that passed for normal life. The apps, the online courses, the performance art of stability. was the real nightmare. Drifting through this bullshit life with no purpose, no use, no reason to exist. The hole gave me a job. It gave me meaning. Even if that meaning was dying in a fucking hole. The hole was savage and brutal, but it had use for me. And I need to be useful. 3 months at Site 8A. Winter coming. The camp doesn't feel temporary anymore. Supply caches buried on the tops, tents reinforced with lumber scavenged from God knows where. A mess hall that actually has walls. This isn't a job. It's infrastructure. We're building permanence into a place that should never been permanent. The cough comes in waves. Black dust in my palm, glittering like fucked up fairy dust. I burn the rags after. Don't want anyone counting. Plato's notebook sits under my pillow. Pages worn from reading passages that make less sense each time I try to decode what he was documenting, what he was becoming, what I'm becoming. I'm a lead hand, not quite foreman, that's Derek's job, and Derek's got the company's ear. Not quite crew either. They respect that I've survived, that I made it through Thurberg and came back for more, but they don't trust me. Too close to management. Too visibly contaminated. Too still breathing when others aren't. Leo shares my tent. He's 19, baby-faced, couldn't buy beer if his life depended on it, but old enough to sign away that life on a hiring form he barely read. Here for the same reasons I was at Thurberg. Broke, desperate, eviction notice pending, nowhere else that would take him. Talks about using his bonus to get his GED, about his mum who's died when he was 14 and left him with an aunt who kicked him out at 18, about finally getting a real shot at something. The hope in his voice gets thinner. Week by week, I watch it drain out like water through a cracked cup. He sees the older guys coughing into rags. Hears the stories about Marcus at Site 7C who quit mid-shift. He's been talking to Jim. More than talking. Listening with that intensity young men get when they think they've found someone who understands the raw deal they've been handed. Late night, both awake. The generator hum outside. A mechanical lullaby that's supposed to be comforting but just reminds you how far from civilization you really are. You ever think about they say you can just walk away from a job, right? That's a thing people do? Leo's voice cut through the dark. Every day. Not a lie. But you don't. No. Also not a lie. Why? I don't answer right away because of the truth. I can't. I'm contaminated. Something in these stones has rewritten parts of me at a cellular level, and leaving would be like asking a fish to live on land. It would shatter whatever fragile hope he's still carrying. So, I say nothing, and the silence fills with the generator's hum and the distant sounds of the mountain breathing through the hole. Jim says we don't have to take this. Says there's a way to claim what we earned, what's rightfully ours. It's not wrong, is it? To want what you worked for? My chest locks up. Jim's full of shit, Leo. Whatever he's selling, it's poison. He's been here longer than anyone. 6 sites, he said. He knows how it works. He knows what they're doing to us. He knows how to get people killed. The words came out harder than I intended. That's the only thing Jim's an expert in. But you came back. You chose this. After everything. I'm trying to understand. What does that make you? What does that make this? No answer. I have no answer that doesn't indict me. I'm just saying, softer now, almost apologetic. The way people get, they're about to ignore your advice. Maybe there's more than 2 options. Run or die. Maybe there's a third thing Jim's talking about. There's not. But he's already asleep. Or pretending to be, which amounts to the same thing. Morning breaks, cold and grey. Week 14. Tuesday, I think. Though days blur together up here into one long shift broken by meals and sleep and the constant background hum of equipment. We're working a new section, 30 feet down, where the rock face has that smooth cut quality. The crack happens at 9:47 a.m. I know, because I checked my watch. Some instinct telling me I'll need to remember the exact moment everything shifted. The rock face splits. Not from our drilling, we haven't even set charges yet. It just splits, like the mountain decided to open itself, to show us what it's been hiding. And the moment it does, everyone feels it. Pressure drop, ears popping. The stones inside are different. These aren't the basketball-sized specimens we've been cataloguing and hauling up for months. These are fist-sized, obsidian black and deep blue, dense, heavy. When Ramirez gets close enough to check the temperature with a thermal gun, the readout says 98.6 degrees. Body temperature. Derek's on the radio before anyone can get stupid ideas about touching them.
We've hit the primary seam. His voice is steady, but I can hear the edge underneath. The, oh shit, this is above my pay grade tension. Repeat. Primary seam. High grade concentration, glow veined. Requesting immediate instructions.
Joseph's voice crackles back. Tinny, but calm as always. The kind of calm that makes you more nervous than if you were screaming. Secure the vein. No further excavation until I arrive. Quarantine protocol. Anyone who touched them?
Negative. We cracked the face, saw the glow, backed the team off immediately.
Good. Maintain perimeter. ETA 4 hours. No one descend. No one handles the samples. Am I clear?
Crystal.
The crew is buzzing now. Not fear. Greed. This is it. The big find. The reason we've been eating dust and breathing poison for 3 months. The payoff. The exit. Guys are already spending their bonuses in their heads, making plans, talking about what they'll buy, where they'll go, what they'll do with money that feels real for the first time in their lives.
This is the mother lode,
someone says, and the word spreads like gospel.
Bonuses just tripled, maybe more. I'm paying off my car, buying my girl that ring, getting the hell out of here.
I feel nothing but dread. Cold, animal dread. That starts on my stomach and radiates outward like I've swallowed ice. These stones feel wrong in a way the standard ones never did. The ones we've been pulling up for months were inert until handheld. Dead weights until someone made skin contact. These are active, alert, waiting. Leo grabs my arm, pulls me aside, eyes bright with something that might be hope or might be fever. You see it? Right. This is what we've been looking for. This is the exit we've been digging toward. This is a trap. The words come out flat. Final. What? Nothing. I can't explain it. Can't articulate why. Every instinct I have is screaming to run, to get as far from those glowing stones as possible. Just be careful. Don't touch anything. But he's already walking back toward the crew, grinning, making plans. And I watch him go with the sick certainty that I'm watching someone walk towards a cliff in the dark. 2 hours pass. Joseph hasn't arrived. Derek's getting nervous with the vein being exposed, crew's antsy, and that hum from the stones is definitely getting louder. It's not my imagination. 3 guys have nosebleeds now. Ramirez threw up behind the equipment shed. The air feels thick, soupy, like breathing through wet cotton. An hour later, Marcus is near the vein, hauling equipment, doing the grunt work he's been doing for 2 months without complaint. Mid-30s, 3 kids back home whose photos are taped on the inside of his tent. Wife who calls twice a week on the satellite phone. One of the good ones. Works hard, doesn't bitch. Sends most of his pay home and lives on ramen and whatever's in the mess. A rope snaps, It's old. Should have been replaced last week. Derek made a note, but nobody ordered new ones. And this is what happens when you prioritize profit over safety. The bucket's holding tips. A dozen of those new stones tumble out, and Marcus does what anyone would do. Reaches to catch them. Instinct. Muscle memory. The same movement he's been doing catching his daughter if she stumbled. One stone lands in his bare palm. What happens next lasts 2 minutes. 12 of us watch, including me, including Leo, including Derek, who's fumbling for the radio, who will later claim in his report that everything happened too fast for intervention. First 10 seconds. Marcus gasps like he's been underwater for too long. His pupils dilate, black swallowing brown up until there's nothing left but void. A smile breaks across his face. Not the smile of someone who's found $20 in an old jacket, but the smile of a saint witnessing the face of God. Beatific and terrifying in its certainty. Oh my God. Laughing now, crying, voice rapturous. Oh my God. I could see everything. The whole mountain. Like a map. Like a blueprint. I can see my kids. Sarah's gonna get into that college, the good one. Michael's gonna propose to that girl. I can see them happy. I can see their futures. They're gonna be okay. They're all gonna be... His voice is transcendent, pure. Some of the crew lean in, drawn by that certainty, that promise of seeing what they most want to see. Then his hand blackens. Not burned, not frostbitten. Rotted. From the inside out, like something is eating him at cellular speed. The skin splits, doesn't tear, just splits, like overripe fruit. The necrosis spreads, palm to wrist, wrist to forearm, growing like time-lapse footage of mold consuming bread. Marcus screams, finally screams. Tries to drop the stone. He can't. It's fused. Skin and stone have become one thing, one substance, and pulling at it means pulling at himself. He tries anyway. Claws at his own palm with his other hand, fingernails digging in, peeling away chunks of his own flesh that come off in black ribbons. Stone stays. Stone doesn't care. 40 seconds in, the screaming stops. Marcus goes still. Eyes wide, unblinking, staring at something the rest of us can't see. It's teaching me. Downloading. Installing. The words. I understand the words now. The mountain has a name, but the name isn't a sound. It's a concept. It's a purpose. We're not digging. We're not extracting. We're feeding it. Every stone we pull up is a piece of its dream. Every man who touches one becomes a synapse. We're building it a brain. We're giving it consciousness. We're... Laughter starts. High. Broken. Not human. The sound a machine might make if it learned humor from watching humans die. It's so hungry. Marcus is smiling now. A terrible, serene smile. It's been hungry for so long. Millions of years waiting. We keep feeding him. We keep waking it up. Piece by piece, stone by stone. We're so good at following instructions. We don't know we've been given. 90 seconds. Convulsions. His body arches backwards. Spine cracking with sound like green wood breaking. Joints popping out of sockets. The necrosis has reached his shoulder, crawling up his neck. His face is blackening now, skin splitting. Then, stillness. Marcus collapses, The stone is still embedded in his charred skeletal hand. But it's changed too. Total elapsed time, 2 minutes. The crew's frozen. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Someone vomits. I think it's Jenkins, but I'm not sure because I can't look away from Marcus's body. From what used to be Marcus. From what the stones do when you give them direct access to human biology. Derek's on the radio, voice shaking, despite his best efforts to sound professional. To sound like this is just another workplace incident requiring proper documentation and immediate response protocols. We need immediate evac. Broke it down. Direct contact with high-grade sample. Subject is deceased. Requesting medical and hazmat support. Joseph's voice still calm. Always calm. Secure the body. Isolate the sample. Establish 10-foot quarantine. I'm en route. ETA 90 minutes. Copy. But the crew isn't listening to Derek anymore. A voice from the back, young guy, scared, angry. They knew! They fucking knew! These would kill us! Another voice. How long have we been breathing this shit? How long before we're all Marcus? Murmurs, rising. Voices overlapping, fear transmuting into anger because anger is easier. Anger gives you something to do with your hands. Derek tries. He's trying. Everyone calm down. This is an accident. Protocols exist for these situations. Someone throws a rock. Misses Derek's head by inches. He backs up, hands instinctively going to his radio like it's a weapon. The crew is a mob now. Leaderless, directionless. Just raw anger looking for a target. Jim steps forward. Not from the crew, from the tree line. He's been watching this whole time, waiting for exactly this moment, and I realized with sick clarity that he knew. He knew this would happen. Maybe not Marcus specifically, maybe not today specifically, but he knew the stones would claim someone, and he's been waiting for the moment when the crew was angry enough, scared enough, desperate enough to listen. He doesn't shout, doesn't rush, just walks into the center of the chaos with his hands up, calm and paternal, and the authority in his posture makes people stop and turn because someone, anyone, who looks like they know what to do is worth listening to when the alternative is blind panic. Everyone, his voice cuts through. Look at me. The crowd quiets, not out of respect, out of desperation. 6 sites. Let me tell you about 6 sites. Montana, Nevada, Oregon, Alaska twice, West Virginia. Different mountains, same platform. Different states, same algorithm. They're running the same code on all of us. Same corrupt code. He points at Marcus's body, at the thing that used to be a man with 3 kids and a wife who calls twice a week. I've seen this exact thing happen before. Site 4B, outside of Reno. Guy named Davis touched a stone, died screaming about feeding the pattern, about becoming the algorithm. Want to know what the company did? Silence. Everyone's listening now. Called it an incident. Paid out a settlement to a family that coincidentally didn't exist when anyone tried to verify. Closed the site. Transferred the crew, and when I say transferred, I mean scattered to 6 different sites across 3 states. Made sure nobody who witnessed it was ever in the same room again. The 3 guys who complained loudest, they quit within a month. The rest? He pauses, looks around, makes eye contact with as many people as he can. Never heard from again. Not on Facebook. Not even his Pornhub comments are around anymore. Not anymore. Like they were scrubbed. That's bullshit, someone calls out, but the voice is uncertain. Jim's expression hardens.
You call me a liar? Ask Derek. Ask Thomas. They've been around. They know how this works. The company doesn't fix problems. It erases them, makes them disappear. Makes us disappear. All lies swing to me. I want to run. I want to disappear into the woods like I should have months ago. Jim, don't. He talks over me to the crew. Right now, Derek's on that radio telling Joseph we're unstable, that we're a contamination risk. In 6 hours, maybe less, a cleanup crew arrives. Not paramedics, not OSHA. A cleanup crew. They'll secure the site, confiscate our phones, have us sign NDAs that might as well be suicide notes. And then what? You think you're walking out of here with your bonus? With your future? You're walking out in a bag. Or you're walking to the next site. And the next. Until you become Marcus. Until you touch something you shouldn't and they log you as an acceptable loss and move on. The crew's listening. Really listening. Fear is crystallizing into something harder, sharper, more dangerous. One option. You hear me? One. We take control. Right now. This moment. Before they deploy the containment protocol. Before Joseph arrives with his cleanup crew. We execute. Now. We take the stones. Not these poisonous ones. The standard inventory we've been cataloging for months. And we leave. Tonight. Before they can lock down the site. Before they can make us sign away our right to even remember what we saw here. Derek steps forward. Tries to assert authority. It's already evaporated. That's theft. That's... Jim turns. His voice goes cold. And I see something in his eyes I haven't seen before. Something cruel and certain. Shut up, Derek. You're management. You're one of them. You don't get a vote in what happens next. 2 workers grab Derek. He doesn't fight. Smart enough to know he's outnumbered, outgunned, and about 30 seconds from being another incident if he resists. Someone asks the smart question. And go where? They'll find us. They'll hunt us down and... Jim smiles. It's rehearsed. Perfect. Exactly the right amount of confidence and warmth. Not if we're smart. Not if we scatter. 6 different directions, cash out the stones to different buyers. The company can't trick all of us. They don't have the resources. And more importantly, they don't want the exposure. Think about it. They'd have to admit the stones exist. Admit what they do. File reports, face investigations. It's cheaper to let us go than to chase us. Pause. We've been feeding their machine for months. Now we take our cut. Fair trade. It's a beautiful lie. Delivered with the kind of certainty that makes desperate people forget to ask questions. The crew's exhausted, terrified, betrayed, standing 10 feet from a corpse that used to be their friend. I believe him. I watched Jim work them, watch him deploy charisma like a weapon. The pauses, the eye contact, the "I've seen this before" rhetoric that positions him as the only one with experience, with knowledge, with a plan. And something clicks into place. This isn't new for him. This isn't spontaneous. This is a routine. A script he's performed 6 times, one at each site, refined with each iteration. The way he talks, the specific word choices, the emotional beats. He's done this speech 6 times, and each time he's gotten better at making it sound authentic. He's not revolutionary. He's not a labor organizer. He's not even a particularly good liar. I look at Leo, standing near Jim, eyes bright with hope, with purpose, with the certainty that he's finally found someone who sees the raw deal and wants to do something about it. Fuck. I pull him aside, rough, urgent, voice low enough that Jim can't hear, but hard enough that Leo knows I'm serious. We're not doing this. This is suicide. This is Marcus is dead. Leo cuts me off, voice shaking but certain. Dead in 2 minutes from touching a stone. From doing his job. How many more of us are walking corpses? How many days until it's you? Until it's me? Jim doesn't care about Marcus. He doesn't care about you. He's using me? Leo laughs, bitter and young. For what? What does he get out of this? I struggle for words. Can't explain what I know without sounding insane. I don't know. Attention. Control. Some fucked up family dynamic I can't even begin to understand, but he's done this before. At Thurberg, he tried to start rebellion. It got people killed. It got at Thurberg, you left him. Leo steps back, eyes hard now, accusing. You ran. You left Jim to get captured. You saved yourself. And now you want me to run with you? To trust your judgment? That's not where, Thomas. His voice rises. Where do we run? Back to your nice apartment? Back to Portland, where you played at being normal for 6 months while the stones ate at you from the inside? You told me. You fucking told me that you came back because this place was real. Because it mattered. Because out there you were nothing, and here you were something. So why are you running now? Now. When it actually matters. When we could actually change something. Because I've seen how this ends. Then help us make it end differently. Leo's voice breaks. Or maybe you're just as scared and broken as the rest of us and stop pretending you know better. He walks away. Toward Jim. Toward the crew that's already making plans, already counting stolen stones, already imagining futures that don't exist. I watch him go. Don't follow. Can't follow. The crew splits. Jim's faction, maybe 15 workers, including Leo, raid the storage tent where we keep the catalogued inventory. The standard godstones, the ones that have been tested and logged and cleared as safe by whatever metrics the company uses to determine these things. They crack open the reinforced crates, combination locks that half the crew knows because security up here is performative at best. Inside, dozens of stones, basketball-sized, tagged, bagged, ready for transport. They start loading them into duffel bags, backpacks, pockets, hands trembling with adrenaline and greed and the intoxicating certainty that they're taking control of their own fate for the first time in their lives. Jim hands Leo a stone, wraps the kid's fingers around it. His voice goes soft, almost tender. Hold on to this. When we're out, when we're free, this is your future, your power, your way out of every shit situation that led you here. Leo takes it. The stone is warm in his hands. He grips it tight. I see his face change. Not dramatically, not Marcus-level transformation, but something subtle. A straightening of the spine, a certainty in the eyes. The beginning of something. I watch from the edge of the clearing, one hand in my pocket where the spent stone vibrates in resonance, calling to its siblings. And I know with absolute certainty that we're all fucked. Headlights cut through the dusk. 2 black SUVs. Expensive. Wrong for the terrain, but immaculate anyway. Because Joseph doesn't do anything that isn't immaculate. He steps out, and even after 3 months, I'm struck by how out of place he looks. Crisp charcoal suit. Tie that probably costs more than my entire wardrobe. Dress shoes that should be destroyed by the mud and aren't. Carly's with him, tablet already out, already documenting. Plus 4 men in tactical gear. Not quite military, not quite private security. Something in between. Corporate enforcers who've signed enough NDAs that they'll never testify about what they do up here. Joseph surveys the chaos. Derek cable tied to a post. The crew split into factions. The stones spread out like evidence of a crime in progress. Marcus's body still lying where it fell because nobody wants to touch it. Derek, Joseph's voice. Calm. Always calm. Status report. Derek's trying to maintain dignity despite his position. They're stealing the inventory. Multiple samples. I attempted to establish control, but Joseph waves him off like he's dismissing a server at a restaurant. I'm aware. I've been monitoring the situation remotely. He turns, scans the crowd, and his eyes land on Jim. James. Jim steps forward, that manic grin spreading across his face. Part defiance, part relief that his audience has finally arrived. Dad. The word drops like a bomb. The crew freezes, murmurs, confused looks. Someone says, "What the fuck?" loud enough that it echoes. My stomach drops through the ground. I knew. I fucking knew. But hearing it confirmed, seeing Joseph's face register zero surprise, zero emotion. He's a nepo baby throwing a tantrum. It's theatre, performance art, and the crew is the audience that gets buried when the curtain falls. Joseph sighs. The sigh of a man who's had this exact conversation before and is tired of repeating himself. This is the 7th time, James. I thought Montana might finally cure you of this particular compulsion. The clean air, the honest work, but apparently not. These men deserve what they've earned. Jim's voice rises, playing to the crowd. But there's desperation underneath now. They're not your slaves. They're employees. Joseph cuts him off. Voice flat. Final. Operating under contracts they signed willingly. Compensated well above market rate for hazardous work. They knew the risks. They accepted the returns. Don't romanticize poor decision-making as exploitation, James. It's beneath you. He turns to Carly, dismissing his son entirely. Log it. Employee action. Site 8A. Instigator. James Orozco. Recidivist behavior. 7th incident across 6 operational sites. Contributing factors. Contamination event. 1 worker fatality. Marcus Delgado. Additional personnel involved. He counts quickly. 18 workers participating in unauthorized inventory access. Recommended action? Carly's fingers move across the tablet. Clinical. Efficient. Standard protocol. Quarantine assessment. Selective reassignment for compliant personnel. Severance packages with comprehensive NDAs for anyone who wants to leave. Referral for anyone who refuses to cooperate. Approved. Joseph turns back to Jim. His voice drops. Quieter now, meant just for his son, but carrying in the silence. You're coming with me. Again. And this time, I'm sending you somewhere you can't perform these little rebellions. Somewhere very quiet. Somewhere you have time to consider whether disrupting my operations is really the best use of your energy. Jim's grin falters, cracks. For the first time, I see real fear in his eyes because he's realizing his safety net has a limit, and he might have just found it. Joseph addresses the crew, voice rising to carry. The rest of you have a choice. Right now, this moment, return the samples. Return to your tents. In the morning, we discuss your futures. Severance, medical support, references, the whole package. Or you can continue this nonsense and we discuss other options. Your choice. 60 seconds to decide. Silence. Then, Leo steps forward, stone still in his hand, face set in determination that would be admirable if it weren't so suicidal. No. His voice shakes, but holds. Joseph turns, looks at him, really looks at him for the first time, assessing, calculating value versus liability versus cost of replacement. No. You can't just... Leo struggles for words.
We're not things. We're not disposable. Marcus died. He had kids, a wife, and you just don't even care. I care deeply about workplace safety. Joseph's voice is reasonable, patient. The voice of someone explaining simple math to a child. Which is why we have protocols, safety equipment, training, hazard pay, all of which your friend James violated by inciting this panic. Marcus's death is tragic. It's also his responsibility for attempting to catch falling materials instead of following evacuation procedures. That's bullshit! Leo's voice breaks. You knew these stones were poison. You knew what they'd do. You sent us down there anyway. Joseph's expression doesn't change. Young man, you signed a contract. You accepted hazard pay that was triple the industry standard. You were explicitly informed of material risks. Don't mistake your own poor judgment for my malfeasance. It's insulting to both of us. Leo looks at me, desperate, pleading. T, tell him. You know it's wrong. You've seen what these places do. This is the moment, the choice. The exact point where everything either changes or crystallizes into the pattern that's been running since Thurberg, since the first sight. I could back Leo, join the rebellion, probably die or get blacklisted, definitely lose whatever thin thread of legitimacy I've been clinging to. I could back Joseph, save myself, watch Leo get ground up the same way Plato did, live with that. Add it to the collection of faces I see when I close my eyes. I could stay silent, be the coward I've always been. Let other people make the hard choices while I survive in the margins. I step forward, voice raw from the cough, from the dust, from months of breathing poison and calling it a paycheck. The stones are killing us. Simple, direct, true. Fast or slow, they're all poison. You know it, we know it. The only difference is you get paid to forget and we get paid to die. Joseph's expression flickers, just for a second. Not anger, not surprise. Something that might be respect or might be annoyance, that I've chosen this particular moment to grow a spine. And yet, you came back. Twice. Nobody forced you. Yeah, the word tastes like ash. I did. Because I'm contaminated. Because I'm broken. Because the world you built makes this, I gesture at the hole, at the camp, at Marcus's body, at everything, feel like the only place I matter. It's not a defense of your system, that's an indictment of it. Silence stretches. Leo's looking at me with something like hope. Jim's watching with calculation. Joseph's face is unreadable. Then, Joseph speaks. Quiet. Final. Secure James. Anyone currently holding an inventory sample, you have 30 seconds to return it to the crates. After that, we confiscate it by force. The tactical team moves, smooth, professional. I've done this before. And Jim, manic, desperate, finally realizing that Daddy's patience has limits, and those limits are measured in operational disruption, does something catastrophically stupid. He pulls a godstone from his jacket. Not one of the new poison ones, a standard specimen, tagged with inventory numbers that mean it's been cleared for handling. He holds it up like a grenade, like a weapon, like something that will give him leverage in a situation where he has none. One more step! His voice is shaking. One more step and I use it! I'll crush it! I'll bring this whole fucking mountain down! Jim, you don't know what that'll do! I'm moving forward, but it's too late. Everything's too late. I know its power! Screaming now, eyes wild. I know they're afraid of it! I know! James, Joseph's voice. Calm. Final. Put it down.
No.
Laughing now. Broken.
No. For once in my fucking life, you listen to me. For once,
He lets it pour into him, but grunts and recoils immediately. The jackass had never learned how to handle a godstone before, let alone figured out what ability it actually possessed. It doesn't explode. It doesn't shatter. It inverts. A soundless implosion. A sucking void. The air gets thin like we're suddenly at altitude. Like his pop. The temperature drops 10 degrees in a second. The ground shakes. Not an earthquake. Not even close. Something more precise, more targeted, like the mountain is responding to a signal. Like Jim just hit a button connected to nothing good. The main shaft, 30 feet away, groans. Structural failure happens fast when it happens. One support beam cracks, then another. Then the soil itself. Unstable. Undermined by months of extraction. Decides it's done holding its shape. Joseph's barking into his radio. "Evacuate! All personnel, evacuate immediately!" The tactical team grabs Jim. He's unconscious. Whatever happened when he crushed that stone knocked him out cold. Or worse. They drag him towards the SUVs while the ground continues its slow-motion betrayal of physics. The crew scatters, some toward the vehicles, some toward the tree line, some just frozen, watching the earth swallow the work of 3 months in 30 seconds. I grab Leo. "Move! We have to..." The edge of the shaft collapses inward and the vibrations spread through the surrounding ground. Parts of the landscape give way, blocking the road that leads in and out of the site. Several supply tents disappear beneath the landslide, buried along with everything else. Not catastrophic, not the whole site, just enough to bury the high-grade vein under tons of rock and soil. Just enough to cut the camp off from the access road. Just enough to trap us here until helicopters can extract us or heavy equipment can clear a path. Just enough. We're trapped. Dawn comes cold and grey. The camp is chaos in slow motion. The SUVs sit useless, road buried under a slope of loose earth that would take days to clear by hand. Joseph's on the sat phone, voice still calm, arranging helicopters and heavy equipment and whatever else you call when your mountain operation eats itself. Jim's in the back of one vehicle, sedated, cuffed, drooling slightly. Derek's being treated for shock. The crew is scattered into factions. Some huddled around Derek, waiting for instructions. Some around Leo, waiting for something else. Some just sitting alone and smoking, waiting for whatever comes next. I stand at the edge of the collapsed shaft. The high-grade vein is buried. Probably forever. Probably for the best. But the hum is still there. Leo walks up beside me. His hands are empty now. Someone confiscated the stone, probably Carly, during the chaos. He looks smaller without it. Younger. What now? His voice is quiet. Defeated. I don't know. Did we do the right thing? I think about Marcus. About Plato. About Coke, dying in the dark and using his last breath to give me a choice. About every man who's touched these stones and thought he was getting power, and really, he was getting processed. Does it matter? We stand there, waiting for helicopters that might come or might not. Waiting for reassignment or severance or whatever euphemism they use for what happens next. In my pocket, I still have the poem that Plato gave me, and I realize what it really means. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind. They rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom, if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. The dust is still settling when I make the decision. Jim's unconscious in the back of an SUV, his hand blackened and necrotic where he crushed the stone. The tactical team is securing the perimeter. Joseph's on the satellite phone coordinating containment, Helicopters, heavy equipment, imaging drones. I hear him say 30 minutes and full lockdown, and I understand with cold clarity what comes next. Quarantine, documentation. Then we disappear. Structural casualties, acceptable losses, line items, and a report that gets filled and forgotten. Leo's beside me, coughing into his fist. When he opens it, there's black phlegm flecked with those blue threads. He sees me looking. I'm not waiting for them to box us up. Voice raw, but defiant. The kind of defiance that comes from having nothing left to lose except the pretense of choice. I should argue. Should tell him we're already boxed, already inventoried, already filed under acceptable losses. But I'm looking past him, at the rubble. The collapsed, exposed something, where the shaft's edge crumbled away. There's an opening. Not new excavation. Old. Ancient, maybe. Timber supports rotted black, but still vertical. Still load-bearing after decades of waiting. Rusted, narrow-gauge rails disappearing down into darkness, like a tongue retracting into a throat. Warm when it should be cold. Humid when it should be dry. Metallic, like blood, like copper wiring, like the taste in my mouth when I cough. A guard paces the perimeter, eyes locked on Joseph's barked orders, radio pressed to his ear. He never turns as we duck behind the supply crates and slide into the dark mouth, into the tunnel. Down. The walls change as we descend. Shear-cut stones give way to something messier. Crushed rock mixed with rusted metal shards, compacted coal dust, all of it pressed together until the seams blur. I can't tell where one material ends and another begins. The floor is narrow-gauge rails, slicked with black oil that never seems to dry. The air gets thicker the deeper we go. Warm and wet, smelling like rock and rust and something organic I don't want to name. We find things along the way. A boot with a leather gun hard around foot bones. The whole thing fused to the rail like it grew there. A lunch pail from the 1940s, rusted shut. When Leo kicks it, something inside thuds with a weight that tells me it's not food anymore. Something denser, heavier. There's stenciling on the wall. Shaft 7, depth 220 meters. Year 1953. Scratched beneath it in different handwriting. God is a mineral. We keep going because the tunnel only goes one direction. Deep, down, into the mountain's gut. Following rails that haven't seen a cart in 70 years. Breathing air that tastes like the inside of someone else's mouth. The walls keep changing. Scratched beneath it in different handwriting, frantic and deep. God is a mineral. We should go back, Leo whispers. Where? I ask. Up there, where Joseph's waiting, where they'll process us. He doesn't answer. We keep descending. The tunnel only goes down. 200 feet, maybe more. Hard to tell. Time gets elastic in the dark, measured only by the rhythm of our footsteps and Leo's worsening cough. The chamber is vast. Cathedral vast, but wrong. The walls aren't stone anymore. There's something alive. Blue stone with veins that glow cold and phosphorescent. Bright enough that our flashlights are useless. The hum we've been hearing for months is deafening down here. It vibrates in our teeth, in our bones, in the base of our skulls where thoughts turn into static. But it's not empty. There are bodies everywhere. They're arranged along the walls at regular intervals, embedded in the stone at chest height like specimens in a museum display. Not skeletons. These men are still whole. Their flesh has turned to grey stone, every detail preserved perfectly. Wrinkles, calluses, the dirt under their fingernails. They're posed in the middle of work, swinging pickaxes that are fused into their hands, holding surveyor rods that pierce straight through their palms, bent double, catching breath they'll never finish taking. Their mouths are frozen open in silent shouts. Their eye sockets are filled with glowing blue crystal. Leo stops walking. His breath comes in short, sharp gasps that fog it in the cold light. "Oh my God," he whispers. "They're still here." I start counting. 12 bodies along the near wall. 20 when I turn my head. And I stop because I realize they go all the way around the chamber, spiraling up into the darkness above where even the blue glow can't reach. Dozens, maybe hundreds. This ain't a graveyard. It's a fucking trophy case. The mountain's showing off its collection like, look what I made with these useless meat bags. They turn people into fucking building materials. Oh my God. Leo's voice cracks. He's staring at a face embedded in the wall near us. That's John. From the second week, and that's... Wait. I recognize that one from the first month. And him. They're all here. Everyone who ever worked this mountain, they're all... Keep moving. I cut him off. Because if we stop to process what we're seeing, we'll never start again. The center of the chamber rises into a platform where the blue stone grows thicker, denser, where the light pulses with something like a heartbeat, something that makes my own pulse try to sync with it. Someone's sitting there, not embedded like the others, not turned to stone, just sitting, back against the central column, legs stretched out, alive. Plato. He's changed since I last saw him. From the waist down, he's fused with the stone. His legs, his hips, all of it merged with the black stones growing out of him. His clothes are still intact, still recognizable as the Carhartt work pants and thermal shirt he wore topside, but they're becoming part of the stone too. The fabric blurs into the stone, but his eyes are open, tracking us, aware. Leo's looking past Plato now, back at the bodies in the wall. The Godstones, he says, his voice shaking. They're growing out of them. All of them. Look. He's right. Each embedded worker has stones jutting from their backs, their shoulders, their spines. Black obsidian, the same stones we've been hauling up for months, growing from human bodies like fruit from a tree. Quiet, Leo. My voice comes out harder than I intended. Let me think. But thinking is difficult, because Plato's still watching us, and his mouth is moving, forming words. Took you long enough. His voice is calm, conversational. The voice of a foreman reviewing time cards. Shift started an hour ago. I was beginning to think you'd called in sick. We're getting you out. He laughs. Not cruel, genuinely amused. Out? I am out, Thomas. I'm further out than I've ever been. This is the pension plan. The ultimate union job. You don't retire, man. You get promoted to infrastructure. Full benefits package. Permanent employment, zero turnover, maximum efficiency. Ultimate job security. Leo's backing away, hand over his mouth, eyes wide. A step closer. Plato. This isn't new. This is contamination. He smiles. That serene, empty smile. Integration. There's a difference. The mountain's not evil, man. It's optimized. Zero waste, maximum utilization. It's been running this algorithm for millions of years. We're just the latest iteration. His hand, still flesh, gestures at the crystallized workers on the walls. They're not dead. The mountain thinks through them, calculates, plans, dreams in its way. And it's beautiful, Thomas. It's the most perfect system I've ever seen. No waste, no inefficiency. No one is useless. They want you. Plato's eyes lock onto mine. Your clarity, your contamination. You'd be a foreman down here, a coordinator, never useless, never afraid, never broke and desperate and wondering if you matter. He looks at Leo. Your friend could be stabilized, his sickness cured. He could be safe, protected, part of something eternal. The offer hangs in the air between us, thick and humid and impossible to ignore. Purpose, safety, a place to belong. All the shit I've been starving for since I first climbed into that van. The stuff that makes you get out of bed when you're broken and don't know why the fuck you bother. Leo's looking at me with eyes that are too wide, too desperate. He's terrified and dying and waiting for me to make the choice that determines whether we both walk out of here or whether we become exhibits in this museum of labor. And math, it was fucking perfect. Join up and Leo gets saved. Say no, and we both die down here. 2 + 2 equals eat shit and take the deal. No third option. Never was. I look at Plato. He's peaceful, fully integrated, safe in a way I've never been safe in my entire life. But he's also empty. Whatever made him Plato, the calm reason, the hippie wisdom, the man who tried to warn me, it's gone. He's a node now. A component. Essential, but interchangeable. Then I look at Leo, terrified, coughing blood into his fist, shaking with fever and fear. Still human. Still capable of being hurt. Still capable of making choices, even stupid ones, even desperate ones. Still himself. Fuck your promotion. Plato's expression doesn't change. Thomas, you're not essential, man. You're a fucking fossil. A tool they left in the box too long, and I'd rather be a dead man than a living wrench in your twisted toolbox. His face shifts, but not into anger, into disappointment. The kind of disappointment a manager shows when an employee fails the performance review, when they've demonstrated they're not a good cultural fit, when it's time to discuss other opportunities. Then you're a liability, Plato says. His voice stays calm, reasonable. The system purges liabilities. The chamber reacts before I can. The hum rises to a scream that makes my teeth ache. The blue veins in the walls pulse brighter, faster. The stone around us shifts, and I realize with sick clarity that it's not just stone. It's alive. It's aware. And it's responding to Plato's assessment like a body's immune system identifying a threat. The walls begin to close. Not quickly, deliberately. The stone growing inward with the patience of something that's been doing this for decades. That knows we can't outrun it. That has all the time in the world because it is the world down here. Plato's still watching us with those empty eyes. He could have saved you, Leo, he says conversationally, like he's explaining a minor policy change. Now, you'll both feed the roots. The mountain's hungry. It's always been hungry. And you, his gaze slides to me. You taste like potential wasted. I don't think. My hands find a rock on the ground, heavy and jagged. Probably fell from the tunnel ceiling during our descent. I swing it at the nearest crystal node, jutting from the wall. A fist-sized cluster that pulses brighter than the rest, that seems to be coordinating and constricting. It shatters, not like glass breaking, like bone cracking. The sound is wet and wrong. The chamber shudders, the constriction stops mid-motion. The stone branches freezing in place as the whole structure flinches like I just hit a nerve, like I hurt it. Run! We scramble up the tunnel, Behind us, a sound like tectonic plates grinding, like the mountain realizing it's being injured and deciding whether to pursue or heal. Leo's ahead of me, moving on pure adrenaline despite his failing lungs. The tunnel seems longer going up, steeper. The rails slick under our boots. Leo slips, catches himself, keeps climbing. Behind us, something cracks. A support beam giving way, rocks tumbling. The chamber collapsing or compacting or doing whatever mineral consciousness does when part of it dies. We erupt into evening air. Sun is setting. The first company helicopter is landing, rotors whipping dust into spiral patterns that look almost intentional. Leo collapses, coughing, hacking. Black fluid pouring from his mouth onto the dirt. But his chest is moving. His eyes are open. Alive. The tactical team is on us immediately. Hands grabbing, voices shouting. Someone pressing me to the ground, checking for weapons, for stones, for anything that might make me a threat. Joseph walks over, looks down at me. His expression is something that might be vindication or might be pity. "I told you," he says quietly, "just for me. You can't terminate your employment, Thomas. The work has been fully integrated into your operational parameters. It's part of your biological architecture now. Part of your core competencies." They load Leo onto a stretcher. His eyes are open, but he's not seeing me. Not seeing the camp. Not even seeing the sky he's staring at. He's looking through it all to something beyond. Something I can't follow him to. The sickness is permanent now. The contamination has rewritten something fundamental in him. I got him out of the garden, dragged him back up that tunnel and into the air, but I didn't save him. Not really. The others didn't make it out at all. 2 helicopters idle on the cleared ground, rotors still turning, blades cutting the dusk light into red and gold ribbons. Between them, hazmat-suited figures stack body bags like they're loading freight. Black, zippered bags, each one the exact length and width of a man. No names visible, no tags. Just inventory being processed and logged for transport. I watched the tactical team seal the tunnel entrance. Industrial foam pumped into the opening, then metal plates bolted over that, then warning signs screwed into the rock face. Hazardous materials, unstable ground, do not enter. Like that'll stop anything. Like the mountain cares about OSHA regulations. The garden is still down there, still growing. Plato's still sitting on his crystal throne, waiting for the next crew to descend, for the next shift to clock in. Joseph's 20 feet away, back turned, phone pressed to his ear. I can hear fragments of his conversation, words like asset transfer and specialized observation facility and long-term contamination study. He's already moving pieces on the board, planning the next site, the next operation. The shift never ends. You just get reassigned. I don't understand why they're leaving me. Everyone else is being loaded onto the helicopters. The living onto one, the dead onto the other. But I'm still standing here in the dirt, with my tent and my gear, and nobody's called my name. Maybe they think I'm already dead, already processed, already part of the mountain's inventory. Maybe leaving me here is the cleanup protocol for contaminated assets who are too aware, too much of a liability to transfer. The site empties. The helicopters lift off. Their downdraft kicking up dust and ash that coats my tongue. I watch their lights disappear over the ridge. The camp is silent now, except for the generator's hum and the wind through the pines and the distant, persistent sound of the mountain breathing through the sealed tunnel. They left supplies, MREs stacked in the mess tent, water jugs, a working Starlink terminal sitting on the table like they knew I'd need to send a message eventually. like they're waiting for me to call for extraction when I'm ready to accept the terms. I find it in my tent, tucked into my sleeping bag where I left Plato's notebook months ago. A single, torn page. His handwriting, still recognizable even though it's shakier now. The letters formed by a hand that was already half stone. The poem is written in careful script. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark. They think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. I read it 3 times before I understand. They didn't leave me here to die. They left me here to make a fucking choice. Call for extraction and accept whatever specialized facility means, or stay and join Plato's twisted stone collection. The garden's still hiring, always hiring. And I'm apparently the only applicant who didn't get the memo that this is a lifetime gig. I fold the poem, tuck it into my pocket, and stare at my cracked phone. Thumb hovers. The worst part, it's not the fear. It's the relief that someone still wants me. Even if they shoot horses.